Chapter 127. The scene fell into a stalemate. Why waste your breath on him? Suddenly, a disdainful and arrogant female voice resounded in the great hall. The tone carried the pressure of a demigod. At the center of the great hall, a black arc appeared, and slowly expanded into a circle. This was a mystic art that could tear through space only a demigod could. Everyone present could not help but be stunned. A moment later, a human figure stepped out from within. "I'll listen to whoever's stronger." These words were said especially arrogantly, yet, the pressure of a demigod in her words caused people to be unable to muster any thoughts of resistance. Even Zmo simply tightened his fists and did not refute. 3 people walked out from the shattered space, and all 3 of them were familiar faces. The first to walk out was a woman dressed in a fiery red robe. A cold smile hung on her lips, and the 3 letters bug on her face were as black as an engraving. Mu Meian. Even Zhu Yao was a little shocked. 100 years ago, she was still at the middle stages of nascent soul, and now she was already a demigod. The aura she sensed from her body was not much different from hers, and it even faintly suppressed her. Zhu Yao stared at the black shadow that had already fused with her. It was even denser than before, and it was emitting out a terrifying black aura. In the past, she did not know what that was. Recently, however, because she was learning how to refine artifacts, she was especially sensitive to auras, which was why she could barely recognize that it was actually an aura of extreme. Other than her, no one else could see that black shadow. She did not know why, but she could sense that the black shadow had been staring at her. It was as though something cold was seeping out from the bottom of her feet, and it was extremely cold. Zhu Yao intentionally ignored that black shadow like the others. However, the feeling of being stared at grew deeper. The 2 sovereigns are here. The sect master of Celestial Indus sect, however, had an excited and complacent look as he welcomed them. Sovereign Qihan, Sovereign Rulu, Junior Martial Sister Hanxing. He greeted them one by one. However, when he saw Mu Meian, a hint of awkwardness flashed past his face. After all, the sovereign in front of him was once his daughter, and back then he was the one who personally chased her out of the sect. However, who would have thought that she would break through into a demigod 100 years later, and even return to Celestial Indus sect as though she did not care about the past? Looking at the sect master of Celestial Indus sect, Zhu Yao was able to guess a little. No sect would reject a demigod stage practitioner, even if they had grudges in the past. The reason why Mu Meian had been hiding all these years was probably because the shadow had yet to recover. Now that Black Shadow's abilities were stronger than before, she naturally rose to the soul formation stage with her golden finger. Could it be that she had changed her weak personality and become so arrogant? This must be her true nature. Things were getting more and more difficult. Yener. Wu Song stood up, his face filled with disbelief as he looked towards Mu Meian. His expression changed into an indescribably complicated one. However, Mu Meian merely turned her head and looked at him with a look of disdain. With a cold snort, as if she had done something, blood flowed out from the corner of Wu Song's mouth. His face turned pale, and he sat down while choking. Zhu Yao frowned. As expected, she had always been using Wu Song, right? However, Wu Song deserved it. Turning his head to look at Yu Hanxin, who was following behind Qi Han, he could not help but sigh. Sure enough, the female lead and supporting actress were natural enemies. Mary Sue versus Green Tea Bitch? She really wanted to watch the show. However, from the looks of it, the Black Shadow would definitely not let her go. Just like all Mary Sue settings, Yu Hanxin had an astonishingly beautiful face. Zhu Yao was almost unable to recognize that she was that thin and weak child from back then. However, her exquisite face looked a little haggard. It seemed like after Mu Meian rose to the demigod level, she had become a demigod. He had caused her a lot of trouble. He could not help but turn to look at Yu Ying. His face was calm, and his eyes did not even move. He kept looking down at her. But was he going to acknowledge his relatives? Are you your biological sister? Or a sister? And then Zhu Yao realized a problem in hindsight. Which was bigger, Yu Hanxin or Yu Ying? In the immortal cultivation world, strength is everything. Mu Meian's gaze went past Zmo and directly landed on Zhu Yao. The corner of her lips revealed a hint of a cold smile. Didn't Ancient Hill sect possess 3 demigod sovereigns in the past, and was hailed as the #1 deity sect in the cultivation world? Currently, our Celestial Indus sect has 3 demigod sovereigns as well. The #1 position is going to change hands soon, right? Zemo's expression instantly darkened. What do you mean by known as? With the strength of his Ancient Hill sect, did he still need to boast about himself? This sovereign? Zemo laughed out of extreme anger. The so-called #1 deity sect is merely an empty title. Our sect has been established for so many years, and this empty title is merely a nickname given to us by fellow Taoists out of respect. Our sect's name is Ancient Hill, yet, we have never had the intention to change it. Naturally, we will not take a mere title as our own either. His words sounded humble, however in reality, he was mocking Celestial Indus sect. If translated into human words, it would be, what #1 deity sect? It's all forcefully given to us by others, and we don't even want it? Yet, you treat it like a treasure, and even shamelessly come to snatch it from us. Although Mu Meiyan had lived 2 lives, in terms of words, how could he compare to a sect master who had lived in the world for thousands of years, and had cultivated the art of human relationships to perfection? For a moment, she was rendered speechless, as she widened her eyes and stared straight at Zemo. The pressure on her body, which she could not control, pressed towards Zemo. Just as Zhu Yao was about to make her move, someone was a step faster than her. Another wave of even more powerful pressure pressed back at him. Celestial Indus sect sure is arrogant. Unexpectedly, the one who made his move was actually Sovereign Dan Wu of Ancient Hill sect, who did not have much presence. In the past, in public, even if he revealed his face, he would never speak. His low profile caused people to subconsciously ignore him. However, the moment he made his move this time, he clearly let people feel the strength of a late-stage demigod. Even Mu Meiyan's expression changed. Although Celestial Indus sect was known to have 3 demigods, Chi Han and Mu Meiyan had just entered the demigod realm not long ago. The other sovereign who did not show himself was merely a mid-stage demigod as well. Only then did the Celestial Indus sect master feel a little afraid. Suddenly, there were 2 more sovereigns in the sect, and he was so happy that his mind was muddled. He had forgotten that the demigod sovereigns of Ancient Hill sect had all entered the demigod realm for many years. Sovereign Zhu Yao, who had the lowest cultivation, was an early-stage demigod, but she came from Jade Forest Mountain. He had no choice but to bite the bullet and come out to smooth things over, explaining to everyone that his sovereign was just being impulsive, and did not have the intention to start a war. However, Sovereign Dan Wu did not reply, and once again closed his eyes to rest, as though he was completely uninterested in all of this. Mu Meiyan felt that she had indeed been a little impulsive as well. She understood the feeling of being humble to the very bottom of the earth all too well. Hence, after becoming strong, she could no longer control the reckless thoughts in the depths of her heart. She did not want to be suppressed by others, hence, she lowered her vigilance. Today, we're here to discuss the matters regarding the intersect tournament that will be held a year from now. Chi Han reminded coldly, although he was a little annoyed at Rulu's impulsiveness. Out of consideration for the other party's cultivation, he endured it. He was becoming more and more unhappy with this daughter of the sect master. In the past, he still felt a little sympathy for her. After all, she had the water spirit vein in the past. However, ever since her spirit vein mutated, it was as though she had become a completely different person. She became calculative, and she even targeted her own disciple at every turn. Sect Master Mu. Mu Meiyan regained her composure, and a hint of radiance flashed past her eyes. She smiled. Actually, the intersect tournament is a huge matter for the various sects, and it's related to everyone here. If the matter regarding the venue is difficult, why don't you directly ask everyone, and see which sect everyone is willing to compete in? This move of hers was ruthless enough. The other sects couldn't wait for the 2 sects to fight, so they naturally agreed to join in the fun. And faintly, there were already quite a number of people who were starting to shout out that they wanted to go to Celestial Indus sect. However, there were also some sects who shouted that they would go to other immortal sects. What was even more ridiculous was that there were some who said that they would take turns. Do you think this is the Olympics? Zhu Yao silently retorted. The various sects had been arguing endlessly. Initially, it was the competition between Celestial Indus sect and Ancient Hill sect, and later on, the other sects wanted a share as well. Hence, a large number of sects had once again appeared. All of them were clamoring to go to their own sections. After arguing for a long while, there was still no conclusion. Zhu Yao could not help but suggest to everyone, "Let's go out and fight. Then let's decide the winner in 3 rounds," someone shouted. Wow, they're really going to fight. The final result was out. In the end, it was still the fist that spoke. Each sect would choose 3 representatives and listen to the winner. Zhu Yao was forced to kneel in front of this simple violence after fighting for an entire day. At the end of the day, we still have to fight. Why the hell are you wasting so much time talking? At the same time, he might as well finish the sect tournament. In less than a moment, everyone had already made their initial decision on the candidates. The participants were actually all nascent soul practitioners. However, when it was Celestial Indus sect's turn to choose their candidates, Mu Meiyan stood up. With a smile that was not a smile, she looked at Zhu Yao, who was seated at the seat of honor. "Sovereign Zhu Yao, why don't this sovereign accompany everyone as well? Sovereign Zhu Yao, are you willing to fight with me?" What? Zhu Yao was stunned for a moment. Wasn't her main mission today to act as a front? Seeing that she did not have any reaction, Mu Meiyan's smile grew even more complacent. Zhu Yao understood. Although the person she hated the most was Yu Hanxin, ever since she stopped her from seizing Yu Yao's body, she had always been a thorn in Mu Meiyan's heart. She did not expect that she would actually dare to deal with her so openly. When Mu Meiyan's letter of challenge fell, the entire place instantly turned silent. A moment later, they faintly felt a little excited. This was a battle between demigod sovereigns. It was a rare sight. What sovereign doesn't dare? Amen, I don't dare. Mu Meiyan was startled, as though she did not expect that she would reply in such a manner. For a moment, she did not know how to react. She actually shamelessly admitted it. The demigod has the ability to move mountains and drain the seas. This is my Ancient Hill sect. Zhu Yao calmly explained, and she even rolled her eyes. Her meaning was, "Are you stupid to suffer such a huge loss from a single battle?" Crowd. That did seem logical. Demigod stage practitioners would never easily take action, because their abilities were too strong. If they were to fight, they would not be able to settle the matter. Hence, the gaze they used to look at Mu Meiyan with had changed. For her own selfishness, she would disregard the lives of others. Mu Meiyan was trembling from anger, yet she was unable to refute. She could only fiercely say, "We can leave Ancient Hill sect and fight on the surface of the sea. This way she wouldn't implicate others, right? Not going." "You. Is there no one by the sea?" She rolled her eyes again. If they were to fight on the surface of the sea, huge waves would be stirred up, and tsunamis would definitely be triggered. Zhu Yao decided to add fuel to the fire. "Ha, we were once mortals as well. One should not forget one's roots." Hence, the gazes the crowd used to look at Mu Meiyan with became even more unfriendly, as though she was a great villain who had killed a large number of residents by the sea. Mu Meiyan took a few deep breaths before she could suppress her own anger. She coldly laughed. "In the end, aren't you just afraid of fighting me? It's fine, I don't have to fight you no matter what. As long as you admit defeat willingly, it's fine if we don't fight this round." Chapter 128. These words, weren't they a little too arrogant? First, she scolded Zhu Yao for surrendering without a fight, and now, she even wanted to count her as a loser? As expected, the expressions of the people of Ancient Hill sect turned ugly. The hell, this temper of hers. Initially, she did not want to slap her face so quickly, but since she insisted on coming forward, then, she could only slap her with all her might. "Sovereign. Relu, right?" Zhu Yao chuckled. "You really want to fight with me that much?" "Humph." Mu Meiyan coldly snorted. "Cut the crap. Are you going to fight or not? Or are you afraid of losing? I don't really care about winning or losing. However, a mere competition of ours has harmed countless lives and implicated countless karma. Don't you think it's a little too much?" In this world, the strong are respected. If those mortals want to blame, they can only blame themselves for not being strong enough. But ants are good at living. Who didn't start out as mortals? Ants will always be ants. Even if they manage to steal a life, they will still be so weak that they can be pinched to death. Her eyes turned cold, as though she had recalled something. The more she spoke, the more agitated she became. She understood the feeling of being powerless to resist the most, which was why she pursued strength after her reincarnation. The expressions of the others, however, turned ugly one after another, though everyone knew what she said was the truth, and was also the current situation of the cultivation world. However, agreeing in his heart and saying it out loud were two different things. After all, they had always considered themselves as righteous immortal sects, and even used lofty terms to disguise themselves. Although there had been people who had casually killed a group of mortals with a wave of their hand, it was impossible for them to say it proudly. After all, they were not evil cultivators. Zhu Yao saw that the preheating was about done. I heard that Sovereign Rulu has only recently stepped into the demigod stage. So what if I am? Mu Meiyan coldly laughed. Could it be that she thought she did not have the ability to fight against her? Nothing much. Zhu Yao continued to smile. I just suddenly recalled something. 100 years ago, when you accompanied Azure Flight Sect Master to seek my little disciple's hand in marriage, we met once. Back then, you were still kind-hearted. You even helped Sect Master Su plead for leniency? I wonder if Sovereign still remembers? The matter of Azure Flight Sect Master being rejected had been spread all these years. As expected, a hint of embarrassment flashed past Wu Song's face. However, everyone did not expect that back then, this person would be present as well. The matter of Rulu being a traitor of Celestial Indus sect in the past, and escaping into Azure Flight sect, was something that everyone was actually aware of. However, she was now a soul formation supremacy. It was just that no one dared to mention it. As expected, Mu Meiyan's expression turned a little ugly, yet it was not good for her to flare up. She coldly snorted, and did not speak. Most probably, no one would dare to laugh at her anymore. But such a move. On the contrary, it made everyone feel that she was tacitly agreeing. Zhu Yao, however, let out a long sigh. Time passes so quickly. In the blink of an eye, 100 years have passed. Back then, you were still at the middle stages of nascent soul. At first, these words didn't sound like much, but after thinking about it carefully, there were doubts everywhere. Middle stage nascent soul, 100 years ago? What a joke. What do you mean? As expected, Mu Meiyan had also thought of it, and fiercely glared at her. Nothing much. In just 100 years, you managed to advance from the middle stage of the nascent soul realm to the soul formation realm. You are so talented. For a moment, everyone's gazes were fixed on Rulu. How was that possible? No matter how heaven-defying the resources were, advancing from a mid-stage nascent soul to a demigod would require at least a few hundred, or even a few thousand years. They had all cultivated for 1,000 years before reaching the soul formation stage. A mere 100 years? This was illogical. Either the other party had an extremely powerful and heaven-defying cultivation technique, or perhaps he had a heaven-defying magic treasure. The entire hall was in an uproar. Everyone was shocked by this speed. Other than ZMO, who had a calm expression. He silently glanced at his martial uncle. Martial uncle, do you have the cheek to talk about others? Didn't you suddenly become a deity transformation cultivator after disappearing for 200 years? He didn't even say anything. Everyone else thought that Yu Yan had taken in 3 disciples, but fortunately, he was the only one who knew that ancestral grand uncle's disciple was the original one. Only then did Mu Meiyan realize that she seemed to have been too arrogant and attracted the covetous eyes of others. Those pairs of probing and doubtful eyes made her feel a little uneasy. For Sovereign to rise so quickly, you must have had a fortuitous encounter, right? Zhu Yao just had to add fuel to the fire. So what if I did? Mu Meiyan's expression turned even colder, as she released her own demigod stage pressure, wanting to shock the crowd who were still discussing. However, Zhu Yao, as though she was going against her, released her pressure as well, pushing her back. Just what are you trying to do? Even if Mu Meiyan was a fool, she knew what Zhu Yao was planning. I'm just doubting if such a fortuitous encounter exists in this world. Zhu Yao said word by word. Just what kind of fortuitous encounter can allow a person's cultivation to instantly rise to the demigod stage? And his personality has even changed greatly, becoming so ruthless, and disregarding the lives of others. When these words fell, everyone was dumbfounded. Zhu Yao was just short of directly saying that she had been taken over. Everyone could not help but recall how she insisted on fighting Zhu Yao without any hesitation. Adding her cultivation. They were already starting to believe her words a little in the depths of their hearts. Even her father, the sect master of Celestial Indus sect, began to ponder as well. You're spouting nonsense. Mu Meiyan instantly panicked. Initially, the matter of her being taken over was true. However, it was not after she became a nascent soul cultivator, but before Relu began to cultivate. Zhu Yao, don't think that I don't dare to kill you. Her expression turned stern, and the demigod stage pressure suddenly increased by several times. Zhu Yao herself was not afraid of this pressure, but the worst thing was, the shadow behind her seemed to have been enraged as well, and it was currently pouncing straight towards her. Zhu Yao's figure turned, and in a flash, she teleported out of the entrance of the Great Hall, arriving at the empty plaza. Sovereign, I was right. Are you trying to silence me by killing me? When she heard these words, as expected, the furious Mu Meiyan chased after her. Zhu Yao smiled. I was afraid you wouldn't come out. She stood at a place not far away from her, and looked at her with a cold smile, as though she was looking at a corpse. The shadow behind her grew even denser as well. That low and sinister laughter once again sounded, causing the depths of her heart to turn a little cold. Zhu Yao tightened her grip on the things in her hands. Actually, her legs had long turned soft from anxiety, but she was afraid that she could not solve the problem, so she had no choice but to risk it. She had simply brought forward the matter that she had decided on a long time ago. That shadow had already charged towards her, and Zhu Yao had no choice but to retreat and dodge it. No one else could see the shadow, so everyone could only see Mu Meiyan standing at the same spot without moving, while Zhu Yao was fleeing in a very sorry state. It was as though she was fleeing in panic because of the opponent's aura. Mu Meiyan coldly snorted. She was overestimating herself. Couldn't she see the phantom? Then she would play with her. Zhu Yao was being chased to the point where she had nowhere to retreat. Initially, she had thought that she would definitely suffer some injuries after encountering this shadow. She had already prepared herself for both sides to suffer heavy injuries. However, she did not know if it was because she was too arrogant, but this shadow seemed to be toying with her the entire time. It simply chased her all over the place, and did not actually attack her. It gave off the feeling of a cat playing with a mouse. Zhu Yao could not help but praise his generosity. As expected, brainless children were much happier. However, though it was fun for a cat to play with a mouse, if the one that was caught suddenly turned into a tiger, she wondered what the cat would think. Zhu Yao looked at the huge distance between her and Mu Meiyan. It's about time. Now is the time. The shadow leisurely forced Zhu Yao to the edge, and just as he was about to end her, Zhu Yao suddenly raised an object, and with a raise of her hand, she shone it towards him. Suddenly, a ray of golden light directly passed through his body, and his dense black figure was instantly scattered. However, that golden light directly struck towards Mu Meiyan, who was behind her. That ray of light directly swept past her body. Mu Meiyan simply felt a wave of intense pain, as though something important had been directly separated from her body. The spiritual energy in her body felt as though a hole had been opened up, an extremely fast flow. She screamed out miserably, and her voice was extremely shrill. However, another even louder scream sounded from behind her. It was as though all of the devils from hell were screaming out at the same time. A deafening sound resounded through the clouds, and even the entire ancient hill sect began to tremble. Behind Mu Meiyan, a large amount of thick smoke was currently rising. In the air, it gathered into the shape of a terrifying skull, and its mouth was currently emitting out that shrill scream earlier. With a painful expression, it distorted in the sky. The sun and moon in the initially clear sky had lost their radiance. All of the strange flowers and plants in ancient hill sect instantly withered. The minds of everyone present were shaken by that scream, and they puked out fresh blood, as though their organs were being torn apart. What is this? Someone cried out, however. No one gave him an answer. Forget about the nascent soul reverends present. Even the demigod stage practitioners had never seen such a terrifying scene before. Just the existence of the black smoke in the air was enough to make people completely unable to resist. Help me. Enduring the intense pain in her chest, she once again raised the light mirror in her hands. Circulating all of the spiritual energy in her body, she attacked towards the constantly screaming skull in the air. Feng Yi and Tan Wu were the first to react. One after another, they summoned their own sword intent and attacked towards the sky. However, other than the ray of light released by Zhu Yao's mirror earlier, the other two's attacks were completely ineffective, as though they were slicing through thin air. That shadow, however, quickly retracted and returned back into Mu Meiyan's body. Mu Meiyan, who was still unconscious on the ground earlier, had a hint of red light flashing past her eyes. She stood up, and a powerful energy covered the skies and earth, assaulted towards the crowd. While the crowd was defending, Mu Meiyan had already disappeared from her original spot. The entire place was deathly silent. None of them had regained their senses from that terrifying scene earlier, and no one spoke. Earlier? Just what was that? The sect master of Celestial Indus sect had a dazed expression. Could it be devil race? Tan Wu muttered out 2 words. However, the hearts of everyone present could not help but tremble. However, they could not find any other existences to refute it. In this world, the only race that could cause people to completely lose their will to resist, and could cause all living things to instantly lose their vitality, was the devil race. The entire place became even quieter. No one had thought that there would be a day when the devil race would appear in this world. In this world where the god race had already gone extinct. Hanxing has disappeared. Qi Han suddenly realized that his disciple who had been following behind him had disappeared along with Mu Meiyan as well. Could it be? He did not dare to continue this line of thought. Chapter 129. With the black figure's tyrannical ruckus, everyone present was instantly dumbfounded, and Zhu Yao was no exception. She almost couldn't hold the weapon in her hand, and her heart was thumping wildly. Only then did he start to feel a lingering fear. In fact, ever since her master came down to the mortal world to look for her, she had a faint guess that the darkness was not simple. Even if he was not an immortal from the upper realm, he was definitely an extremely powerful being. But no matter how hard she racked her brains, she would never have guessed that it was actually the legendary demon race. Zhu Yao instantly felt like crying, and had the urge to throw away her burden and go on strike. Motherfucker, that's the devil race, the legendary race that only existed in ancient times. They fought to the death with the god race, the race that both sides received a bento box. How could mere mortals like them fight with him? They were either tired of living or tired of living. They weren't even on the same level, okay? Could it be that she had accidentally activated the Protoss branch, so a demon bloodline had popped out to make up for it? Damn it, other than having a dragon's body, she didn't have the so-called god race's abilities at all, okay? She hadn't even received the most basic inheritance of the dragon. Otherwise, how could she have remained a soul formation cultivator? Venerable one, what should we do next? Probably because this scene was too shocking, a nascent soul practitioner turned around and looked at Zhu Yao, who was still standing at her original spot. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone who was still immersed in the shock of the appearance of the demon race seemed to have recovered from their shock and looked over in unison. That's right, earlier, the only one who could deal with the devil was Sovereign Zhu Yao alone. They still had hope. Zhu Yao felt a chill being stared at by the countless pairs of eyes that were waiting to be fed, a pui, filled with hope. Instinctively, she took a step back. If she said she didn't know either, would he be beaten to death? Don't panic, everyone. Zhu Yao took a deep breath, suppressing her shock. I think that devil has yet to fully mature. At the very least, he has yet to completely revive. Otherwise, there would be no need to borrow the body of a Xiozha. Moreover, I just forcibly removed him from the host's body. He must have been seriously injured. The only thing we can do now is to get rid of him before he recovers his strength. In short, it's better to take advantage of his illness and kill him. No, it's better to take advantage of the victory and pursue him. Everyone heard this. There was finally a glimmer of hope in his despairing eyes. That's right, they won the battle just now. This matter cannot be delayed, Zhu Yao instructed with a stern expression. We must definitely find them before the devil recovers, otherwise, there will be endless troubles in the future. Everyone's expression turned serious. In the face of a huge matter of life and death in the cultivation world, the various clans and sects displayed unprecedented unity. One after another, they began to declare that they would send out all of their disciples and carry out a large-scale search operation, other than Celestial Indus sect and Azure Flight sect, as the main culprit for harboring the demons. Although the other party was also a victim, they had completely lost everyone's trust. For a time, these two sects received everyone's hostility. It was supposed to be a show to force the emperor to abdicate. However, because of the appearance of the devil race, it had turned into a battle between races. Initially, Ancient Hill sect, who was about to be forced to give up the right to host the inter-sect tournament, was forced to do so. However, he once again stood in the leading position, and it was logical and unbreakable. No one would have thought of such a plot twist. Under Zhu Yao's instructions, the news of the devil's reappearance quickly spread throughout the entire cultivation world. Almost every xiuzha, even evil cultivators, began to search for traces of the devil race on their own. Mu Meiyan's name had already resounded throughout the entire cultivation world. That's right, it wasn't Rulu. It was Mu Meiyan. Back then, when Rulu was expelled from Celestial Indus sect, she changed her name to Mu Meiyan and escaped into Azure Flight sect. Hence, everyone thought that Mu Meiyan was the devil's real name. Zhu Yao thought that with so many people searching for her, she would be able to obtain news of Mu Meiyan not long after. She never expected that after an entire 3 months had passed, forget about Mu Meiyan. Even Yu Hanxin, who was captured along the way, did not have any news at all. She would rush over at the first instant whenever there was a suspicious piece of news. However, there was not a single one of them. Not even a single strand of the devil's hair could be seen. Mu Meiyan and Yu Hanxin, this love-hate pair, seemed to have evaporated from the world and had disappeared without a trace. Zhu Yao could not help but feel a little anxious as well. Yu Yao. Yu Yan sighed. His stupid disciple had already walked back and forth in front of him more than 100 times, and he was about to faint. Yet his disciple, who was usually like a firecracker, was currently surprisingly silent. He had already appeared for a long time, yet she did not have the slightest bit of reaction. He was unhappy. Master. Zhu Yao seemed to have only just realized the figure that suddenly popped out from the jade pendant. Startled for a moment, she frowned a moment later, and continued to walk back and forth. There's something I can't figure out. What is it? Just where did that devil pop out from? How did he appear? And how did Mu Meiyan obtain him? Ever since the first time she met the resurrected Mu Meiyan, that shadow had been by her side. Evidently, that shadow had existed since the very beginning, and it was even possible that Mu Meiyan's resurrection and possession were the handiwork of the devil. Otherwise, when Radish was being possessed back then, why would Mu Meiyan's soul directly appear in Radish's divine sense, and not be detected by anyone? And after the possession failed, the black hole she left was very strange as well, and did not seem like any sort of divine art. That devil definitely did not simply have a blood contract with Mu Meiyan. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to help Mu Meiyan with all his might. Devils did not have much humanity to speak of. He must have some sort of goal for doing this, or perhaps, he had reached some sort of agreement with Mu Meiyan. Then could she guess that from the very beginning, Mu Meiyan was not some sort of bug, and the real bug was actually that devil in her body? Perhaps, her method from the very beginning was wrong. The one she truly had to guard against was that devil, and not Mu Meiyan. Yu Yan lightly frowned, and a moment later he said, "Devils are naturally murderous, and have always existed in this world. However, ever since the ancient era, they were completely sealed by the god race. There were no fish that escaped the net? If there were, how could the current cultivation world exist? Master, you're saying. Zhu Yao's eyes shone. That wasn't a true devil. Yu Yan frowned and shook his head. Yes and no. What did he mean? Can we speak in human terms? Did you realize that there was something abnormal about that devil? Yu Yan continued. Abnormal? The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Does being abnormally strong count? Yu Yan looked at her with disdain, sighed, and gave her an expression that said, as expected, you're stupid. Other than you, if anyone else attacked that devil, what effect would there be? Effect? What effect would there be? The others basically did not hit. Zhu Yao said halfway, and suddenly widened her eyes. He doesn't have a physical body? Yu Yan lightly nodded. His disciple could be considered to be so stupid that there was medicine that could save her. That devil's physical body has already been destroyed? Zhu Yao instantly grew a little excited. Every living being in this world had a soul, and the only thing that could contain a soul was a physical body. No matter if it was a demonic beast, a beast or a human, it was the same, other than the path of reincarnation, which could temporarily contain a soul. All souls that had lost their physical bodies could not exist in this world for more than 7 days. After 7 days, their souls would completely dissipate. But that devil clearly could leave Mu Meiyan's body. Back then, when she was in Azure Flight sect, that shadow came alone, and Mu Meiyan was not nearby. Furthermore, that devil was clearly here before Mu Meiyan took over his body. Back then, when he had taken over Rulu's body, that devil could have simply come by himself, so why did he have to bring Mu Meiyan along? And they were even like a loving family, coexisting peacefully for so long. This was simply illogical. Even if a devil's soul could reside in anything. Wait a minute, anything? Could it be? That devil did not possess Rulu's body, and instead, resided in Mu Meiyan's soul? Yu Yan deeply frowned, and then nodded. There was indeed such a possibility. Zhu Yao instantly felt a little speechless. This devil was a little too unlucky, wasn't he? What could he not find to reside in? He found a soul to reside in. It was no wonder he had to help her take over her body, and act as her nanny along the way. This devil. Is he sick? Zhu Yao could only understand it this way. Most likely, when his original body was destroyed, he basically did not have the time to find a suitable physical body, so he could only reside in the soul of a human practitioner, whose physical body had similarly died. Zhu Yao wiped off her sweat. Why would a soul make things difficult for a soul? That's not right. They were already a loving family. Zhu Yao took out the mirror-like mystic artifact she had refined and muttered. In other words, the one I slashed earlier wasn't a connection through a blood contract. It's not a blood contract, but a soul link between the two of them? Amen. Zhu Yao's face darkened, as she had a bad premonition. In other words, that sort of mind had instead helped him, allowing that devil to enter a new physical body. Of course. The hell? Zhu Yao suddenly had the urge to stomp her hands. This is what you get for having such a cheap hand. However, Yu Yan continued, that sword of yours had injured his soul, and no one can repair the damage to his soul. Even if the devil were to take over his body, he might not succeed. In other words, he temporarily will not be looking for a new physical body? She was given a fright. He did not even pant when he spoke. Yu Yan looked at the mystic artifact in her hands as well. This was something he could not understand at all. Theoretically speaking, things like souls were intangible, yet his disciple was actually able to sever them. He was a little suspicious as to what exactly his disciple had refined. Zhu Yao's line of sight looked towards the weapon in her hands as well. Honestly speaking, even she was shocked, alright? Back then, she simply wanted to refine the sharpest weapon, and the one in her hands was indeed a genuine 10th rank mystic artifact. However, Zhu Yao pulled the handle of the mirror and turned it, instantly separating the mirror and the handle. The mystic artifact, which was still overflowing with spiritual energy earlier, instantly showed two extremes. The part on the handle, the spiritual energy was even denser. Earlier, it was just a regular 10th rank mystic artifact, but now, It was emitting the aura of a top-grade mystic artifact. The other half of the mirror, however, instantly dimmed, turning into a regular copper mirror. It could not even be considered as a mystic artifact. However, what truly injured the devil was not the 10th-ranked top-grade handle, but this regular copper mirror. Just what item did you refine? When his disciple was refining the artifact, Yu Yen had been watching her the entire time. However, he still could not understand. It was clearly a very ordinary item. Zhu Yao smiled. Back then, I simply wanted to refine the sharpest item. Later on, I recalled that item had always been by my side. It's not profound nether metal? That was the most special piece of material he had left for his disciple. If it was refined properly, there was a possibility that it could be refined into a divine artifact. Zhu Yao shook her head, pointed to the sky, and said, "It's light." Chapter 130. That's right. As the #1 fan of Star Wars, Zhu Yao had created a lightsaber. He also added spell formations and 5 elemental spell techniques to create an enhanced version. Previously, she was only thinking about how to separate the shadow from Mu Meiyan's body. Who knew that the moment she thought about it, she would think of modern cutting techniques. What could be more effective than laser cutting? Who knew that the black shadow was actually a demon? The demon was a race born in the dark. Light was the only weapon that could restrain them, not to mention the laser that she had strengthened. Zhu Yao tried to explain the theory behind lasers to her master, but unfortunately, the generation gap between the two worlds was simply too deep to be bridged. The more she explained, the stranger the situation developed. Until Yu Luo came looking for him. "Master, someone wishes to meet you." Little Radish's voice was a little strange, and carried a hint of hesitation. Zhu Yao signaled her master with her eyes. Only when his figure slowly disappeared did she put away the jade pendant on the table. Then with a wave of her hand, she opened the door. "Come in." Yu Luo walked in with a complicated expression on her face. Following behind her was a man dressed in a green robe. His handsome face seemed to be troubled by something, appearing somewhat dispirited. It was actually Wu Song, whom she had just met not too long ago. Zhu Yao suddenly understood Yu Luo's abnormality. "Greetings, sovereign." Wu Song bowed towards Zhu Yao in a well-mannered manner, and was even more respectful than ever before. Zhu Yao raised her brows. There was an indescribable feeling in her heart. Other than Yu Luo, Wu Song was the child she valued the most, yet, he was also the one who disappointed her the most. "I wonder why Sect Master Su has come to my Jade Forest Mountain?" Wu Song was startled for a moment, and his face instantly turned a few shades paler. He was naturally able to hear the sarcasm in the words Sect Master. He had no choice but to grit his teeth and continue. "Disciple is here to earnestly ask Sect Master to return to the mountain." "Return to the mountain?" Zhu Yao laughed. "Which mountain?" Wu Song felt even more ashamed to death, but he had no choice but to brace himself and finish speaking. "Azure Flight is currently being ostracized and pressured by the other sections. Everyone in the sect is feeling insecure. Sect Master, please return and take charge of the situation." Zhu Yao suddenly felt it was a little funny. Just where did he get the confidence that she would follow him back to clean up that mess? In the past, when she first returned, Azure Flight was like the sun in the sky. He did not ask her to go back. Now that he couldn't hold on any longer, he thought of her. Did they really think that he owed them in his previous life? "I have already returned the sect leader token to your esteemed sect. Right now, I have nothing to do with Azure Flight. What's there to talk about going back?" Seeing that she didn't have the slightest intention of letting go, Wu Song got a little anxious. As long as the Venerable One returns, this disciple is willing to give up the position of sect master. Give. This time, Zhu Yao really laughed. "Wu Song, do you think I want it?" Wu Song's face instantly paled, as though he did not expect that she would reply in such a manner. After a long while he finally found the words to mutter. "Sovereign, Azure Flight was founded by you. Everyone has always respected you. Do you really have the heart to see it destroyed?" "Of course." Zhu Yao nodded without the slightest hesitation. Wu Song was instantly stunned. Zhu Yao stood up and walked over. Her heart was suddenly filled with anger for no reason. Even Sect Master Su could bear to chase my only disciple out of Azure Flight and watch him fall into the hands of evil practitioners. Why would I not bear to do so? Heretic practitioner. Wu Song was stunned, as he looked towards Yu Luo at the side with an astonished expression. What evil cultivator? Could it be that Sect Master Su doesn't know that there have always been heretic practitioners lingering around Azure Flight Sect? Or, even though you knew about it, you still chased Yu Luo out of Azure Flight? Even clay figurines had their own temper, let alone her. Back then, when she passed Radish to him, how did he guarantee it? But in the end, if she had not sensed that cave back then, if she had come out from that scroll a little later, most likely, recalling the scene back then, she even had the urge to beat him up until his mother couldn't recognize him. No, I didn't. Wu Song anxiously explained. Back then, when he told Yu Luo that the person he liked was Yen, it was not that he did not expect her to be sad. However, he never expected that she would return to Ancient Hill Sect by herself. Could it be that she had encountered a heretic practitioner back then? This matter, I really don't know. Then don't you know that Yu Luo has a single water spirit vein? Wu Song instantly turned silent. What did a single water spirit vein mean? Was he stupid, or was there grass growing in his brain, to actually let her be alone? Back then, the reason why she allowed Yu Luo to go to Azure Flight was so that when she wasn't around, there would be someone to protect her. However, she never expected that the absolutely safe place she thought of was actually the place that hurt her the most. Wu Song lowered his head. His heart was already about to be drowned by guilt. He did not even have the courage to raise his head to look at her. However, when he thought of Azure Flight's current situation, he had no choice but to continue pleading. This matter is still my fault alone. However, Sovereign, please do not anger the other disciples. Currently, Azure Flight is being ostracized by the other sects, and they are often harassed by heretic practitioners with ill intentions. Adding that the Great Mountain Barrier Formation has been removed, the disciples in the sect have lost their protection and are often injured. The people in the sect are all homeless. I hope that Sovereign can help them out on account of our past relationship. Zhu Yao took a deep breath and looked at Yu Luo at the side. Little Radish, what do you think? She was the one who brought them here. And the one who was hurt the most in this matter was also her. She did not know what Radish was thinking either. As the saying goes, a fall into the pit, a gain in your wit. She did not wish for Yu Luo to fall into it again. If she still could not forget Wu Song, then she had nothing to say as well. Yu Luo was silent for a moment. When she raised her head, her expression was unexpectedly clear as well. Master, Yu Luo can report this matter to the Ancient Hill Sect Master. If Sect Master Su is willing, he can bring his disciples to join our Ancient Hill Sect. What? Wu Song was a little dumbfounded, as though he never expected that Yu Luo would bring up such a suggestion. Joining Ancient Hill Sect, that meant that there would no longer be an Azure Flight sect in this world. How was this any different from annihilating his sect? Zhu Yao could not help but want to laugh, and the depths of her heart instantly relaxed. It seemed like Yu Luo really did not have the slightest bit of thoughts towards Wu Song. This move was ruthless enough. Without crippling a single soldier, she had taken in so many elite disciples for nothing. As expected of that old man Zemo's daughter, she was as cunning as could be. Yu Luo, do you really want Azure Flight Sect to be annihilated? Wu Song seemed as though he wanted to plead for leniency, but he was interrupted by Yu Luo. Sect Master Su, both you and I know that this is the best method. Currently, amongst the various sects, other than our Ancient Hill Sect, who else would dare to accept disciples from your esteemed sect? Wu Song was at a loss for words. Indeed, because of Mu Meiyan, the various sects were currently avoiding Azure Flight in fear. How could they accept disciples from the sect? They were afraid that another demon would sneak in. And only Ancient Hill Sect, who had exposed the conspiracy of the devil, had this kind of strength. Wu Song's face was filled with helplessness, and he did not directly reply to Yu Luo's suggestion. However, they knew that he would agree to it sooner or later. Azure Flight Sect's foundation was shallow in the first place. When she first established the sect, she had mentioned it before, to have them keep a low profile as much as possible. Yet not only did they steal the limelight before they even had a stable footing, they even openly invited Mu Meiyan into their sect, and admitted that their previous self was Azure Melancholy sect. No matter what was the reason why Azure Melancholy sect was annihilated back then, now that they realized that there were so many sins left behind, how could those heretic practitioners let them go? Let alone now that they were in such a weak state. Sesame. She suddenly recalled something. Mistress, you called me? Sesame's despicable voice sounded. Mistress, do you miss Beastie? Zhu Yao glared at Sesame, whose head was peeking out from behind the tree. Why are you standing so far away for? Sesame laughed. Of course, it was because he was afraid of being beaten. When Wu Song came, he knew that his mistress would definitely know what he had done, hence, it was safer to hide far away. Amen, he was a smart beastie. Let me ask you, were you the one who removed the Great Mountain Barrier Formation? Sesame scratched the tree trunk in front of him, and said with an innocent look. Beastie simply wanted to help Little Radish vent his anger. Then what about Chen Ning? This really has nothing to do with me. He was the one who wanted to leave. I didn't even get to see his face. Although he was chased by him, didn't he manage to shake him off? Amen, he was definitely a smart beastie. Zhu Yao's face darkened. It was no wonder Wu Song was in such a hurry to seek help. The front door was wide open, and the backyard was on fire. It would be weird if Azure Flight could hold on. Although she was a little annoyed at Sesame for acting on his own, he was the one who found it himself. They were the ones who invited Mu Meiyan in. Forget it. Help me find Chen Ning, mistress. Sesame's voice instantly sank to the bottom of the valley, and he looked pitiful as though he had been abandoned. Hurry and go. Zhu Yao could not be bothered with it, seeing that it did not move even after being urged several times. If you're not going, I'll go. Beastie will go now. Beastie will go now. And with a swoosh, his figure disappeared. What a joke. How could he let another demonic beast be alone with his mistress? He was the genuine contracted beastie. Sesame's movements were very quick, and it was also because Chen Ning had been lingering in the vicinity of Ancient Hill Sect. However, because of Ancient Hill Sect's Great Mountain Barrier Formation, he was unable to enter. Not even a moment later, Chen Ning was brought into Jade Forest Mountain. Mistress, Chen Ning called out, and stared straight at Zhu Yao. He was still dressed in that elegant white robe, as he cupped his fists and gave a proper bow. This subordinate greets mistress. From the looks of it, he was much more well-behaved than the lowly Sesame. However, his eyes were a little scorching, as though they were about to burn. Mama's egg, why the hell are you drooling? Cuckoo. Zhu Yao coughed a few times. Anyone would feel uncomfortable being stared at by this perverted man, right? She simply could not understand just how powerful the suppression of the dragon bloodline was. Chen Ning, there's something I wish to ask for your help with. This subordinate is willing to die 1,000 deaths. Chen Ning immediately expressed his loyalty. It's not that serious. Zhu Yao suddenly felt a little of a headache. I simply wish for you to hurry and produce a batch of mystic tools for me as soon as possible. Zhu Yao's thoughts were very simple. If the weakness of the devil was light, then, wouldn't it be fine if she produced a few more lightsabers? This way, even if that shadow were to appear again, she would not have to fight alone. However, with just her alone, she definitely wouldn't be able to complete it. Chen Ning was a merchant, so he definitely had a bunch of craftsmen under him. Finding him to do it was the most suitable. And as a merchant, she believed that he had his own secret techniques as well. This way, she could prevent these techniques that did not belong to this world from leaking out. Of course, he wasn't doing it for free either. After getting rid of the bug that was the devil, he could take back these weapons. In the future, he could do whatever he wanted with them. Chen Ning was a reliable person. In just a few days' time, he had already produced a batch. Although their might was a little weaker than the ones in her hands, it was still not bad. She then distributed these swords to the various sects. As expected, the efficiency of searching for the devil had increased by quite a bit. At the very least, there were very few false news that came. A month later, something unexpected suddenly happened. P.S. I've just recovered from my flu. Recently, my waist and back are aching, and my legs are cramping. I can't update twice. With the author's terrible hand speed, it would already be considered pretty good if he could type 1,000 words in an hour. In other words, one update would require 3 hours of coding. As for the previous month's update, cough. In the end, it was all eaten up by the transvestite during a trip to Thailand. I still have to go to work normally, so I hope everyone can understand. Hence recently I've been updating alone. Chapter 131. Recently, Yuluo had been very busy, and she rarely returned to the Jade Forest Mountain. She had been handling some trivial matters of the sect in the main mountain. Zmo was already in closed-door seclusion, and he did not have much lifespan left. If he did not make a breakthrough into a demigod this time, he would most likely fall as a nascent soul cultivator. Most of the matters regarding Ancient Hill sect had already been handed over to the various mountain lords and Yuluo. Only Zhu Yao and Yu Ying were left in Jade Forest Mountain. Zhu Yao was busy looking for Mu Meiyan, and would often head out as well. Only Yu Ying remained in Jade Forest Mountain. Yu Ying was a child with an extremely low presence, adding that he did not speak often. If not for the fact that he liked to follow by her side occasionally, Zhu Yao would have subconsciously ignored him. He was very serious in his cultivation. This could be seen from the fact that he was able to form his gold core so quickly even though he had 5 spiritual roots. Zhu Yao could not help but feel a little guilty towards him. Back then, she made the decision to bring him out on her own. However, after so many years, he was basically left to fend for himself. Even the matters regarding cultivation were taught by Yuluo, and she basically had never interfered. Turning her head, she looked at Yu Ying, who was staring at her with a wooden expression. His eyes were clear, and other than her figure, there was nothing else, let alone resentment. It seemed that just looking at her like this was enough. Zhu Yao felt that she had neglected her duties even more. Taking advantage of the rare free time today, she wanted to give him some pointers on his cultivation. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly felt the ground shake. A pillar of light suddenly appeared on the surface of the calm sea, shooting straight into the clouds. Auspicious signs appeared everywhere, 7-colored auspicious light scattered down, and the sky was filled with 7-colored auspicious clouds. Hundreds of flowers bloomed in Ancient Hill sect, and in an instant, the fragrance of flowers filled the air. What the hell is this? A unique treasure has appeared in the sea. Feng Yi flew over with her sword, and indicated for her to follow, before flying towards the pillar of light. Zhu Yao could faintly sense that things weren't as simple as they seemed. Obediently wait here for my return. After instructing Yu Ying, he also chased after them on his sword. In less than a moment he had already flown close to the pillar of light. They were not the first to arrive. There were already a few people surrounding them, however, they were all demigod sovereigns from other sects, and Chi Han was there as well. They had probably sensed the commotion here, and rushed over. The pillar of light was enormous. The diameter of the cloud was about 10 meters, and it seemed to be made up of spiritual energy. It was so dense that it seemed like it was about to condense into a solid form. No one moved, only watching closely. However, more and more people came to watch. Almost all of them were Yuanying Xiozha. A rare treasure had appeared. For heaven and earth to produce an anomaly, and for this anomaly to be so obvious, it was apparent just how valuable the treasure inside was. It was highly likely an immortal artifact. After a long while, within the pillar of light, suddenly something long rose up. Everyone held their breath and waited. However, he could not help but start to size up the people around him. An ownerless treasure naturally belonged to whoever snatched it. There had never been absolute peace in the world of cultivators, let alone in the face of benefits. The atmosphere was a little tense. A few days ago, due to the appearance of the devil race in the world, it created a scene of unity against outsiders, and it instantly showed signs of collapsing. Zhu Yao suddenly felt a sense of helplessness. The pillar of light slowly faded away. Surprisingly, it was not an immortal pill or an immortal artifact. Rather, it was a massive door. Its entire body was pure white, and its style was extremely simple and unadorned. And at the very top of the door, There were red words as tall as a person. By Meon Immortal Residence. It's actually the residence of a deity from the higher realm. Someone exclaimed. In an instant, the entire crowd became excited. That was a divine residence, a residence of a person who had already ascended to become a deity. Any random item inside was a divine artifact that the lower realm could only dream of. Earlier, because there were demigods present, the people who felt that they had no hope of obtaining the treasure were all excited. To be able to be called a deity, how could there only be a single divine artifact in the residence? How could there only be one immortal artifact in the mansion? As long as he could enter, there would be hope. Many people had already unconsciously summoned their weapons, as though they were prepared to fight at any moment. Sovereign, do you think this divine residence has anything to do with that devil? In the end, there was still someone who understood, and this person was someone she was familiar with. Beast Taming Mountain's Mountain Lord Zidan. That's right, it was that pig-riding fatty. His fat body squeezed forward, and the man and the pig instantly knocked away a few people. He rushed in front of her, and asked with utmost respect. It's possible. Zhu Yao replied ambiguously. In an instant, the people who were eager to give it a try earlier, all calmed down a little, as they looked at that door a little fearfully. How could there be such a coincidence? The moment the devil appeared, a divine residence of the higher realm appeared. It was indeed something that would cause people to investigate deeply. Whether there's any connection or not, we will know once we barge in. Someone shouted out, and suddenly, a gigantic icicle struck towards the white door. However, the moment it struck the door, it suddenly disappeared, as though it was swallowed by something. Before the crowd could even react, a ripple of light flashed on the door, and the icicle that had suddenly disappeared once again flew out. This time, it struck towards the direction where the icicle was shot out from earlier. A nascent soul practitioner was unable to dodge in time, and was struck head-on. If he had not erected a barrier in time, he would have been penetrated by the icicle. This door can reflect mystic arts. Everyone was stunned. They began to send out a few probing attacks, but without exception, they were all reflected back to where they came from. Even a demigod sovereign had made his move, yet the door still did not show any signs of opening. Strange, there clearly aren't any ripples from a formation. Why? The people present could not help but scratch their hearts. Clearly, the treasure was right in front of them. Yet, they could not find the key to open the door. There seems to be some characters on the door. Someone reminded, and only then did the crowd's attacks stop. One after another, they moved forward to take a look, yet they were all confused. Many grids faintly appeared on the door, and a few random grids had a few characters written on them. And those characters were all simple numbers. Zhu Yao's face instantly stiffened, as she instantly felt the evil intentions of the entire world. This is. Though Zidan at the side had a shocked expression, and even Feng Yi widened her eyes. Fellow Taoist Zidan, do you recognize what this is? Someone excitedly asked. This is an ancient mechanism formation. Zidan exposed the truth in a single sentence. Zhu Yao's expression darkened even more. That's right, an ancient mechanism formation. Diagram of 9 palaces, right? Do you dare to take a look at it? Fellow Taoist, you recognize this formation? That person continued to excitedly say. Then is it possible to dispel it? Zidan shook his head, and deeply sighed. As though he had recalled a sad past, his entire being sank a little. Fellow Taoist Zidan, you really don't know how to dispel it. That person thought that he was unwilling, and still persistently persuaded. This matter is of great importance. That devil might very well be hiding inside. It's not that I'm unwilling, but I simply don't have the strength to do so, Zidan said. This ancient mechanism formation technique is extremely complicated, and has long been lost. I have only seen Junior Marshal Brother Jiang dispel it. Junior Marshal Brother Jiang Zhu Yao. Complicated your sister. Her emotions were very complicated. I wonder where fellow Taoist Junior Marshal Brother surnamed Jiang is? Is it possible to call him out for a meeting? The sorrowful aura on Zidan's body grew even more obvious. A moment later he choked a little, and said, That junior martial brother of mine had already fallen 1,000 years ago. That person sank into silence, and a moment later, he let out a deep sigh. Even Feng Yi at the side seemed to have recalled a sad past, as her face was filled with confusion. A moment later, she muttered to herself, Jiang Zhu. Zhu Yao simply felt her legs buckling, and she had almost fallen into the sea. Version 3.0 was definitely her dark history. Could it be that there's really no one who can dispel this formation? In an instant, the entire place quietened down, revealing a helpless look. Zhu Yao weakly raised her hand. Why don't I give it a try? In an instant, dozens of gazes instantly gathered onto her body. Even Feng Yi and Zidan's eyes instantly shone. You know how to dispel this? Feng Yi suddenly took a step forward and looked straight at her. Various emotions were flashing in her eyes, as though something was about to be ignited. My master had once taught me. Zhu Yao gave out an all-purpose excuse. As expected, the light in Feng Yi's eyes instantly extinguished. However, the others revealed looks of understanding one after another. Sovereign Yu Yan was someone who had already ascended. He had lived for several tens of thousands of years, and his strength was unfathomable. Furthermore, he was proficient in formations, so it was very normal for him to know ancient mechanisms like these. The crowd that was still squeezing together earlier immediately opened up a path, as they excitedly watched Zhu Yao dispel the formation. Over 100 nascent soul and demigod practitioners were staring at her, as she played with the 9 palace diagram. This scene was too beautiful, and they did not dare to look at it. Zhu Yao awkwardly walked over, and began to add and subtract numbers within 10 digits. Right now, she deeply regretted not teaching this 9 palace diagram to Feng Yi in time back then. This basically wasn't anything difficult, yet, she was being stared at with such worshipful eyes. She felt a mountain of pressure. This 9 palace diagram was no different from the ones she had dispelled in the past, just that it was a little more complicated. However, no matter how complicated it was merely a matter of half an hour. Zhu Yao looked a little hesitantly at the final grid. For a moment, she was a little uncertain if she should open this door. The appearance of this divine residence was indeed very strange. In the vicinity of this sea region, other than ancient hill sect, there were several other deity sects as well. If a divine residence was hidden here, logically speaking, after so many years, someone should have discovered it. Why did it not appear for so long, and suddenly appear now? Was that devil really hiding inside? The devil race was a product of the ancient era as well, so it was very normal for them to know this 9 palace diagram. However, with the methods of the devil race, since they had already laid down the 9 palace diagram to prevent others from entering, why did they still allow the divine residence to appear? Wasn't this just looking for a beating? Sovereign. Seeing that she had suddenly stopped moving, someone at the side anxiously reminded. Zhu Yao gritted her teeth. Forget it, I'll deal with it when it comes. If I don't go in and take a look, I won't know the result either. Hence, she cast an art, and wrote down the formation runes on the final grid. Zhu Yao immediately retreated a few steps, only to see the entire white door suddenly emit out a red glow. The door that was still snow-white earlier in a moment, was already completely covered by the red glow. In the middle of the tightly shut door, a different kind of green light appeared, and then, it slowly opened. The door opened wider, and not even a moment later, it had opened to the point where it could allow a person to enter. Suddenly, a ray of black light fiercely rose from the surface of the sea, and surged straight into the door. It carried a familiar, mournful howl that sounded like millions of malicious spirits. For a moment, everyone was caught off guard, and their minds trembled, puking out fresh blood. The sky instantly darkened. The devil. There were even quite a few whose nascent souls were almost shaken out. Chapter 132. Rulu. Chi Han was the first to recognize the red figure that suddenly appeared beside the door. Her entire body was surrounded by devilish aura, as though her entire person was hidden within a black miasma. Her initially weak face became sinister and sinister. As expected, one's appearance was born from one's heart. In just a few short months, Her cultivation had already risen from the early stages of demigod to the demigod paragon. No, it was even faintly showing signs of going even higher. Vile spawn. Where's Hanxing? Where did you bring Hanxing to? Qi Han questioned with a furious look. Hanxing? Mu Meiyan glanced at him, and a monstrous rage exploded out. Even the devilish aura around her body had begun to churn. Suddenly, she coldly laughed, and lightly waved her hand. A lump of black miasma appeared next to her, and a human figure could be faintly seen within. The black miasma faded, and a woman whose entire body was covered in blood was frozen in midair. She seemed to have turned into a bloody person. Her entire body was dyed red, and there were even strange runes engraved on her arms. Zhu Yao had seen those runes before as well. They were exactly the same as the ones Xiaoyi used to lock her soul. This scene was unexpectedly familiar. So familiar that she felt as though something was about to come out. Her chest felt heavy, and for a moment, she was a little unable to breathe. Release her. Seeing his beloved disciple being tortured to such a state, Qi Han's eyes instantly turned crimson. He immediately summoned his sword intent and attacked Mu Meiyan. Mu Meiyan coldly laughed. With a wave of her hand, a violent gust of wind blew, and Qi Han's demigod-level sword intent was instantly dispersed by her. Dozens of wind blades flew towards Qi Han. Qi Han was unable to dodge in time, and was struck head-on by that wind blade. Instantly, blood began to flow out from his body like a fountain. I haven't had enough fun yet? How can I release her? Mu Meiyan smiled even more complacently, and her fingers moved. Hundreds of tiny lightning bolts struck onto Yu Hanxing's body. Yu Hanxing, who was on the brink of death earlier, instantly let out a painful scream. The more miserable she screamed, the happier Mu Meiyan became, and her eyes were filled with resentment. What you have given me, I will make you repay it 1,000 times over. No one can escape. Hanxing. Qi Han's face was filled with worry. He struggled to stand up, yet he was powerless. Seeing that Mu Meiyan was about to make her move again, taking this opportunity, Zhu Yao activated the strengthened lightsaber in her hands and struck towards Mu Meiyan. Mu Meiyan was already prepared. With a flicker of his body, he dodged the attack. Humph, you overestimate yourselves. Even if you launch a sneak attack, you won't be able to defeat me. Who said I was going to ambush you? Zhu Yao rolled her eyes. Don't think too highly of yourself. Mu Meiyan was startled for a moment, and only then did she regain her senses. Turning her head around, she saw that the black-colored devilish miasma that was binding Yu Hanxing had already been split apart. Yu Hanxing, who was covered in blood, was caught by Feng Yi, who had long been waiting below. Her original target was not Mu Meiyan. She only wanted to save Mu Meiyan. You deserve to die. Mu Meiyan was infuriated, her expression becoming even more sinister. In an instant, he released all his might. As soon as the pressure of the ascension stage appeared, everyone present was a little unstable. Many Yuanying Xiuzha almost fell off their swords. This was the absolute suppression of cultivation levels. No one could resist it. Except for Zhu Yao. Why are you fine? Mu Meiyan glared at Zhu Yao, who looked as though nothing had happened. She did not know either. Ever since she entered the demigod stage, she had never been suppressed by the pressure of others. Those with higher cultivation levels than her would not easily provoke her. Those with lower cultivation levels were even less likely to suppress her, so she had never realized it. Other people's pressure was ineffective against her. Could it be because of the Dragon Race version 4.0? Wrong version incompatible? After a moment of shock, Mu Meiyan immediately reacted. Summoning her own divine sword, she charged over. Zhu Yao pulled out the handle of the mirror, circulated her spiritual energy, and instantly turned it into a sword filled with lightning sparks. The strange thing was, Mu Meiyan was not as strong as she had imagined. Initially, she had thought that she definitely had no chance of winning against her, who was a demigod paragon. However, the longer she fought, the more flaws she discovered. There were a few times when her spiritual sword was about to land on her body, but every single time, it would be blocked by the black-colored devilish miasma around her body. And then it would be reflected back with 10 times the force. When she used her laser to break the devilish miasma, it would be blocked by Mu Meiyan's 5 elemental mystic arts. Zhu Yao felt that something was amiss. Not only was there something amiss with Mu Meiyan, even the devilish miasma around her body was amiss. It did not seem to be as solid as the shadow from before. Just what was wrong? Zhu Yao once again circulated her spiritual sword and attacked. However, for the nth time, it was wrapped by the devilish miasma and was reflected back with an even greater force. Zhu Yao dodged Mu Meiyan's next black wind blade, retreated 10 feet away, and stared at her face, which had long become twisted. Face. The hell? She suddenly understood what was amiss. Her face was too clean, and she could actually see every single detail on her face. And the word bug, which should have been written on her face, had disappeared. She was currently not that bug. In other words, that devil was not on her body. Zhu Yao instantly understood something, and turned to look at the door of the divine residence, which had already been opened. The final ray of black light that rose from the bottom of the sea had already disappeared into the door. You finally noticed? Mu Meiyan coldly laughed. But it's already too late. Phantom has already obtained that deity's corpse. He's about to revive, and all of you will die. The hell? So this woman was here to stall for time. The corpse of a deity from the higher realm was actually placed in this divine residence. Her master had said that the devil was heavily injured, and basically could not carry out another body possession. However, if there was no need for a body possession, there was no need to talk about a ready-made physical body. A normal physical body would only be able to leave the body after the physical body died, so it could only be possessed. However, it was different for a deity. A deity's body would not rot, and even if the original owner had already died, it could still bear another soul. Just which unlucky deity was it? If he died, then he died. Why did he have to leave a body behind? Forget about leaving a body behind. You even threw it down to the lower realm. Just what kind of grudge does this world have with you? When Mu Meiyan saw that her scheme had succeeded, she began to laugh out wildly. A green light suddenly shone out from within the white door, and the snow-white door began to shatter inch by inch. Suddenly, a ray of green light flew out from within, and the door finally shattered, falling into the sea. A man dressed in a white robe appeared in the air. He sat within the green light, and there were still remnants of black light in his surroundings that were currently drilling into the man's body. That was the true body of the devil. Ha 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 ha. As though she had finally obtained her wish, Mu Meiyan laughed especially arrogantly. Phantom has already succeeded. None of you should even think of escaping. You idiot. Zhu Yao could not help but scold Mu Meiyan, who was still unable to see the situation. We can't escape. Do you think he will let you go? His next step will be to deal with you. What nonsense are you spouting? Mu Meiyan ruthlessly glared at her. How could Phantom possibly? Before she could even finish, the devilic energy around her body suddenly began to stir, and it had even left her side and flew towards the man within the green light. My cultivation. As the devilic energy left, Mu Meiyan's cultivation began to fall at a speed visible to the naked eye. From a demigod paragon to a late-stage demigod, and even began to fall to a nascent soul. No. Impossible. Why is it like this? Mu Meiyan frantically looked at her own hands, wanting to hold onto the black devilic energy. However, she could only grab onto empty air, and her face was filled with immense fear. No. Impossible. Phantom promised to help me take revenge, help me raise my cultivation, and become a strong practitioner. He's a devil. Zhu Yao coldly laughed. There was actually someone who believed that a devil would keep his word. Her cultivation came from a devil, and now that she had found a better body, she naturally would not waste even a single strand of devilic energy on her body. Naturally, she would not waste even a single strand of devilic energy on her body. Mu Meiyan was still trying to hold on to her own cultivation with all her might, however. She could not stop her cultivation from continuously falling from nascent soul to Azoth core. In the end, it finally stopped at foundation. This should be her own cultivation. However, her face had also quickly turned from a young girl's face into a white-haired old woman. As a foundation disciple, her lifespan was indeed too long. At this moment, the The crowd who were suppressed by the pressure had recovered as well. However, none of them moved. The Mu Meiyan in front of them was no longer worth their efforts. The true threat was the one in the sky who had successfully obtained a new body. The devil that was currently fusing together. We can't let him revive, Feng Yi solemnly said, and was the first to rush over. However, before she could even approach, she was forced back by that green light. The green light faintly revealed the pressure of a deity from the higher realm. Practitioners from the lower realm like them were basically unable to approach it. Seeing that the devilic energy in the surroundings was about to be completely absorbed by him, the crowd could only watch helplessly. This was a scheme from the very beginning. That so-called divine residence had most likely been obtained by that devil a long time ago, and he knew what was inside as well. He simply did not have a way to enter, which was why he let it out, and made it look like the birth of a unique treasure. He wanted someone to undo that seal, so that the devil called Phantom could enter and obtain that divine body. Yet he really knew how to undo that seal. Zhu Yao even had the urge to chop off her hands. Damn her hands! Everyone's faces could not help but carry a hint of defeat. Could it be that there was really no way to salvage the situation? Suddenly, a ray of heavenly light pierced through the sky, and a buzzing sound resounded. The sky that was enveloped by dark clouds earlier suddenly dissipated completely. As though the door to the heavens had been opened in an instant, the sky was suddenly filled with falling petals. Two black figures slowly walked out from the heavenly light. These are deities from the higher realm? The crowd instantly felt a little ecstatic. In the next moment, a pressure that belonged to a superior instantly enveloped the entire surface of the sea. That was a level suppression that was 100 times stronger than Mu Meiyan's earlier. The dantian of the nascent soul practitioners present instantly shattered, their cultivation was destroyed, and they fell into the sea. Even the few demigod practitioners could not withstand it. Except for Zhu Yao. Just like how she could not feel Mu Meiyan's pressure back then, she did not feel the slightest bit from these two people either. Oh, there's actually someone who can withstand the spiritual pressure of a gold deity. A doubtful male voice sounded. Zhu Yao was unable to clearly see the appearance of the person within the heavenly light, but she could tell that it was the man on the left who spoke. These two people were really from the higher realm? They sure are good seedlings. Unfortunately, they no longer have the chance to enter the higher realm. Zhu Yao expanded the barrier, trying her best to protect as many people as possible, so as to reduce the pressure from the other party. However, the crowd's pain still did not reduce by much. The hell? Weren't these two people here to help them deal with the devil? Why the hell did they suddenly attack them? Let's get down to business. The other deity spoke up, his voice was even colder. He suddenly reached out his hand towards the green ball next to him, and a flash of light flew out, transforming into the shape of a cage, enveloping the green ball. In an instant, the speed at which it absorbed devilic energy slowed down. The deity who spoke up first, however, looked towards the crowd, and his gaze landed on Yu Hanxin, who was being carried by Qi Han. Is it that one? It should be. She's the only one with an imprint. The other person replied. That deity waved his hand again, and Qi Han simply felt that his hands were empty. In the next moment, Yu Hanxin had already arrived in front of the two people. How did she end up like this? The deity on the left frowned. She has reincarnated several times in the lower realm, so naturally she's like this. The other person sighed. This has nothing to do with us. We simply have to bring her back and hand her over to His Highness. Chapter 133. You two. Just who are you? Zidan looked at the two people who acted as though there was no one else around, and asked. The deity lightly glanced at her, and Zidan immediately felt the pressure on her body becoming heavier. Humph. That person snorted coldly and looked at the crowd disdainfully. What's the point of telling you ants? Were the two divine monarchs sent by His Highness Qi? Qi Han suddenly stood out from the crowd, and bowed towards the two of them. Only then did the immortal on the left turn his gaze over. He narrowed his eyes and said after a while, You're from the Yu family? Qi Han was stunned for a moment, and only after a while did he say, This humble one isn't a member of the Yu family. It's just that the Yu family had met with a calamity, and before the Yu family's patriarch died, he handed Hanqing over to me. All these years, in the name of master and disciple, I've been protecting the Yu clan. Master and disciple? Are you even worthy? The Celestial's face turned cold. Chi-Han hurriedly explained. It's just a title. This humble one naturally doesn't dare to become Concubine Moon's master. Only then did that person's expression become a little better. After sizing Chi-Han up for a moment, he suddenly smiled meaningfully. You sure are smart. That's enough. Since you have protected your master, we will bring you to the upper realm and report to His Highness. In an instant, a look of wild joy flashed past Chi-Han's face, and he hurriedly thanked him. That person raised his hand, and the pressure on Chi-Han's body completely disappeared. Riding on his sword, he flew behind the two of them, and stood there obediently. Towards this scene everyone was shocked. They never would have thought that Yu Hanqin of the Celestial Indus sect was actually someone from the higher realm, though Zhu Yao had faintly guessed it. In that dream back then, Yu Hanqin was indeed the reincarnation of a female deity. However, she did not expect that she was actually the concubine of His Highness Qi from the upper realm. It was no wonder that in Mu Meiyan's previous life, she had an ambiguous relationship with so many men. In the end, he did not choose any of them and ascended instead. It turned out that he already had an owner. Yet, Chi-Han seemed to have long known about this. It was no wonder he treated Yu Hanqin so differently back then. Since we've already found him then. The immortal on the left turned his head. Coldly sweeping his gaze across the crowd, he smiled and said, It's time to start purifying this world. What do you mean? Everyone's faces paled. The man took out a violet gold magic talisman. Devils cannot be revived. The three realms would be destroyed. We were ordered to come and help this world be purified and reborn. Everyone was dumbfounded by his words. Purify the world and be reborn. Does the immortal monarch mean to kill all living things in this world? Although they had guessed that these two people had come with ill intentions, no one would have thought that their purpose of coming down was actually not to exterminate the devil race. Instead, he wanted to destroy the world. Then what should we do? What about the people in this world? Why do we have to die just to seal the devil race? Yeah, what did we do wrong? They want to kill us as well. Aren't you immortals from the upper realm? Aren't you here to save us? Shut up. That person's eyes turned cold, and an even greater pressure came crashing down. Those who had just opened their mouths to argue were instantly suppressed to the point of vomiting blood, and their cultivation levels regressed. Saving you? What a joke. Why should we save you? Were the devil race released by you personally? You brought this upon yourselves. He said this with great confidence. A bone-piercing chill rose from the depths of their hearts. Just a moment ago, they had thought that they had seen hope. But at this moment, they had once again fallen into an even deeper despair. That deity's expression turned even colder, as though to him, destroying a world was as simple as flipping the pages of a book. This is to prevent the devil race from reappearing in this world, for the greater good of all living beings in the three realms. You can only blame yourselves for being unlucky. In the 3,000 worlds, the devil race just had to choose this world of yours to reappear. Only you guys were implicated. This world was destroyed. This reason was simply unbelievable. Who would have thought that the so-called deities were? Deities who stood high above them. Deities whom they could only look up to. They were actually Asuras who stole lives. In an instant, everyone was incomparably furious. You guys should be glad that you died under the supreme treasure of Lightning Divine Hall, the world purification sacred talisman. That deity threw the purple gold talisman in his hand into the sky, and in an instant, a purple radiance began to fill the entire sky. Dying to prevent the devil race from reappearing in this world can be considered a worthy death. Deity, you sure are scheming. This time, Zhu Yao was truly furious. This old lady had risked her life to fix bugs and patch loopholes, all in order to save this world. Where did these two idiots pop out from? With a single sentence, they erased all of her hard work. Based on what? May I ask if the existence of this world is up to the higher realm to make decisions? The world's fate and reincarnation cycle. And it still belongs to the heavenly Tao. Since when did the divine realm possess the ability to surpass the heavenly Tao? If you want to destroy it, then it's destroyed. Have you ever asked for my master's permission? Little brat, what do you know? That deity frowned. Humph, if not for you foolish mortals awakening this devil, how could this calamity have occurred? Us. Zhu Yao asked in return. May I ask, deity, was this devil truly awakened by someone from the lower realm? That person's expression changed as he glared at her. What do you know? Zhu Yao coldly smiled. The devil race was sealed by the god race in the ancient era. That devil sealing ground is located far away in the abyss of the devil realm. Mere practitioners from the lower realm, no matter how strong they are, do not have the ability to cross realms. May I ask, deity, how did this devil break free from its seal, and how did it come to this lower realm? This, how would I know? A hint of panic flashed past that person's face. Zhu Yao, however, continued. Deity, even if you don't know, I'm afraid that concubine moon in your hands would know everything, right? Impudent. That person loudly shouted, as an even stronger pressure pressed towards Zhu Yao. Unfortunately, she was immune to it, and her figure did not even budge an inch. How is this possible? This pressure was released with his full strength, yet she was actually not affected in the slightest. Deity, why are you in such a hurry? Let me make another guess. Zhu Yao continued. Most likely, this noble concubine moon of yours released something she shouldn't have, which was why she was punished by the higher realm, and was sent to the lower realm. And the devil that was awakened by her had escaped to the lower realm as well. Back then, in that precognitive dream, other than saying that Yu Hanxin was a deity, it also mentioned that she had once sealed a heavenly devil in her past life. She had always been unable to understand why that devil was called a heavenly devil. However, after seeing these two people from the higher realm today, she finally understood. The so-called heavenly devil, wasn't it a devil that descended from the heavens? She basically did not seal a heavenly devil, but rather, released a devil. Deity, your logic sure is well learned. So be it if the higher realm silently released a devil into the lower realm. They even used this as an excuse to destroy the world. They even said that we died a worthy death. Could this be the style of deities from the higher realm? With the truth exposed, that so-called deity could no longer maintain that high and mighty calmness on his face. He fiercely glared at Zhu Yao, and that savage look of his did not even look half like a deity anymore. So what if I am? Though the other deity who had been silent the entire time spoke up. He looked over with a cold gaze. You're merely ants, yet you still wish to fight against the heavens. Even if the devil came from the higher realm. What can you ants do when we destroy the world today? Oh. Zhu Yao laughed out of anger. We're ants. We're ants, yet you people are not even comparable to ants. Don't use the lives of the three realms as an excuse. People like you who view lives as worthless, selfish, and don't have the slightest bit of mercy in your hearts. You clearly made a mistake, yet you don't know how to repent. You even implicated the entire lower realm, so what's the difference between you and the devil? You people are basically not worthy of being deities. When these words fell, it received the same influence from the crowd, as they began to curse out one after another. Impudent. That person frowned. Seeing that the situation was a little out of control, he coldly said, a mere demigod stage practitioner dares to spout such arrogant words. Whether we're deities or not, is not something you people can judge. You can only blame yourselves for being too weak. You basically don't have the qualifications to resist. If the people of the higher realm are all selfish people like you people who can't differentiate right from wrong, I would rather never become a deity. A nameless flame surged out from her chest. She no longer cared about the dog's hit deity in front of her. In an instant, she released her aura, summoned her sword intent, and attacked the other party. A ding sound rang in her mind. As though something had been activated, her mind instantly became clear. Humph. That person basically did not place her resistance in his eyes. With a wave of his hand, he dispersed the sword intent she sent out, and wanted to release the pressure of a gold deity once again. However, he realized that it was reflected back. Not just her, The pressure on everyone present had disappeared as well. Earlier, she was completely unable to resist the crowd. Now they had all recovered. This is? What did you do? That deity's expression turned cold as he stared at Zhu Yao at the center. Zhu Yao was startled as well. She simply remembered that she released something in a fit of anger earlier. After sensing it carefully, it was Dragon's Might? So Dragon's Might had such an effect as well. It could remove the suppression of deities from the higher realm. After taking a closer look, not only was the suppression gone, the rain of flowers that fell from the lower realm, because of the two of them, had disappeared as well. Even the heavenly light that was enveloping the two of them had begun to shake. Since we're going to die, let's fight it out with them. Someone shouted out, and a figure charged forward. The remaining people were stunned for a moment, before they summoned their weapons one after another, charging forward without any regard for their lives. Overestimating yourselves. That deity coldly snorted. Evidently, he did not place these practitioners of the lower realm in his eyes at all. An instant later, a gigantic formation was formed in the sky. Blazing fireballs endlessly shot out from the formation towards the crowd. The flames were extremely scorching, and the moment they touched their bodies, not even their bones would remain. Even if they fell into the sea, they would not be able to extinguish them, instantly turning into a sea of flames. One after another, they fell into the sea. The difference in strength was too great. They were basically not their match at all. However, after all, there were only two of them. As the saying goes, ants can bite an elephant to death when there are enough of them. Unavoidably, the two of them had areas that they could not take care of. A hint of impatience began to appear on the two's faces. However, because they still had to protect the unconscious Yuhanxin and the heavily injured Qi Han, it would still be a little inconvenient. Furthermore, the people present were fighting without any regard for their lives, and there were even quite a number of people who chose to self-destruct to attack. Even if they were deities, they were unable to retreat unscathed, and there was still 15 minutes before the World Purification Sacred Talisman would activate. If they did not return to the higher realm now, they would be dragged down as well. The heavenly light that was guiding them to the higher realm was already growing dimmer. If they did not return now, there would definitely be an unforeseen event. The two of them looked at each other, and then, one on the left and one on the right, unleashed a full-powered attack, knocking away the people around them. Bringing Yuhanxin and Qi Han along, they flew towards the end of the heavenly light. Just as they were about to enter the heavenly gate, suddenly, a loud roar resounded. Like a curtain of green light, it instantly enveloped them. It instantly dispersed the heavenly light completely. A few crisp cracking sounds could be heard. Chapter 134. The two of them never expected that the 5-elemental heavenly lightning that was specially invited from Lightning Divine Hall was unable to completely stop the devil's resurrection, and it was even before the World Purification Talisman was fully activated. More importantly, that strange green light had even dispersed the heavenly light of ascension. The moment the heavenly light disappeared, the two deity monarchs from the higher realms suffered from the backlash of the heavenly Tao and puked out blood. Their cultivation levels, which could not be seen through earlier, began to rapidly regress, dropping from the gold deity level to the demigod level, and it was still falling. The heavenly gate instantly closed as well. This was the heavenly Tao. Though she did not know how they managed to open the heavenly gate and retain their cultivation levels in the lower realm, this world could not accommodate people from the higher realm. Hence, the moment the heavenly light of ascension disappeared, the heavenly Tao would naturally send them back to a cultivation level suitable for this world. Ho ho ho! A sinister laughter sounded. The white-clothed man, who was still quietly sitting within the green light earlier, had already stood up. The green light had already slowly faded away, and a pair of crimson eyes flashed with a cold light. The light prison which enveloped his surroundings and prevented him from absorbing the devilic energy was currently shattering bit by bit, revealing a face with long hair, crimson eyes, and a sinister smile. The aura around his body was terrifying. Zhu Yao's heart clenched. Without even thinking, she summoned her sword intent, circulated all the spiritual energy in her body, and attacked him with all her might. However, the man merely lifted the corner of his lips, and his entire being grew even more sinister. Reaching out a hand, he flicked his finger, dispersing the sword-intent lightning phoenix that had gathered all of Zhu Yao's spiritual energy. Zhu Yao could no longer use a single strand of spiritual energy. If Sesame had not caught her in time, she would have fallen into the sea. She had never felt so powerless before, and a single word surfaced in her heart. It's over. That devil-called Phantom's smile grew even more sinister. In a flash, he appeared 3 steps away from her. Zhu Yao was already prepared to die. As expected, with a tap of his feet, he pounced towards her, kicked Sesame aside, and then hugged onto her thigh. Lord! A trembling voice sounded. Phantom half knelt in front of her, and began to crazily rub against her thigh. He began to rub against her legs. My lord! Bunbun likes you so much. Zhu Yao. Sesame. Everyone. My lord, do you like Bunny? Rabbit your sister. What kind of godly development is this? Who can explain this to me? You. Zhu Yao was almost unable to find her mother tongue. Aren't you Phantom? Aren't you a demon? Hey, stop playing around. What's with the sudden change of character at such a tense moment? The man who was trying to hug her thigh was stunned. He raised his head and looked at her excitedly with his sparkling eyes. My lord, do you know Bunny's name? Bunny is so happy. Yo, your sister. What the hell was this? Venerable? The others were all dumbfounded. They glanced at Zhu Yao, and then looked at the man on her thigh who was convulsing. You. Just what in the world is? I don't know either. Zhu Yao instantly had the urge to jump into the sea and die. Looking at the devil beneath her feet who had evidently taken the wrong script, she really wanted to stab her own eyes. Wait a minute. Why did this scene feel so familiar? In this world, there was only one person who would call her master without asking for a reason. Your body is that of a demonic beast? Phantom nodded. Then he called out, Master. Then what's your original form? Phantom was startled for a moment, before revealing a smile at her. In a flash, a gigantic rabbit instantly appeared in front of Zhu Yao. It was so tall that it was about to touch the sky. In the blink of an eye, the rabbit immediately disappeared again, turning back into that white-clothed man. It continued to hug her thigh, and as it rubbed against her, it even let out a satisfied cry. Meow. Meow your sister, be a good rabbit, hey. Why did a good devil turn into a rabbit? Why did a good deity's body turn into a demonic beast? What happened to the promise by Mion's divine residence? Wait a minute, that divine residence looked like it had existed for a very long time, so it must have fallen for many years. It was understandable for a few words to be missing. Then by Mion. By Mion. The hell, it's a white rabbit. It was just a stroke missing. This was a rabbit deity's divine residence, so it was understandable that its original form was that of a rabbit. Hence, devil equals rabbit deity equals demonic beast, and she was of the dragon race. Hence, bloodline suppression. She had to admit that this rabbit deity was really good at tricking devils. My lord, let Bunny be your contracted astral beast, alright? No. You're a man, yet you call yourself Bunny. Don't you feel ashamed? My lord. The little trembling voice continued to tremble. Shut up. She could sense the evil intentions of the entire world. Tell me, just how powerful is the bloodline suppression of the dragon race? You. Could it be that you're a devil as well? One of the deity monarchs who was filled with arrogance earlier, pointed at Zhu Yao with a fearful look. That devil actually called her my lord. Only the devil monarchs of the devil realm could be called my lord, by a devil. Could it be that all of the devils had appeared in the world? She's a devil as well. Hurry. Hurry and kill her. Why aren't you guys making a move? The deity monarch who had already fallen to the late-stage nascent soul stage had long been suppressed by the remaining people. However, he still did not give up and tried to incite the crowd. Unfortunately, no one cared about him. Earlier, their world-destroying operation had already angered the crowd. That purple gold talisman had yet to stop as well, so who would listen to him? Zhu Yao simply replied him with 2 words. Ho ho. Don't let your imagination run wild, youngster. Junior Marshall sister you, just what is this devil? Fengyi looked at her with a confused look as well. I don't really understand either, Zhu Yao honestly said. But I'm certain that he will no longer bring disaster to this world in the future. Fengyi still had a confused look. Zhu Yao raised her head and looked at the purple gold talisman that was still constantly spreading in the sky. Her brows deeply furrowed. World-destroying talisman. Phantom. Zhu Yao pulled up the former devil who was still hugging her thigh. Reaching out her hand, she tapped on the center of his forehead and said with emphasis on every single word. In the name of your Lord, I order you. From today onwards, your soul is not to leave this body, nor are you allowed to harm the lives of others. Until the three realms collapse, until primal chaos descends once again. A ray of golden light shot straight into the center of his brows. Phantom was startled. A moment later, he took a step back and deeply bowed towards her. This subordinate understands. Using her blood essence as a guide, the bloodline contract established was something no demonic beast could defy. Though the bloodline suppression of the dragon race could restrain the devil's nature, this order, as long as he was still alive, he could not defy it. Though the devil had been dealt with, if that world-destroying talisman was not stopped, this world would still be finished. However, how could a talisman that had already been activated be stopped before it was completed? Zhu Yao took a deep breath. She had no choice but to give it a try. Raising her head, she looked at the talisman. Sesame. Circulating her own aura, Zhu Yao instantly transformed into her dragon form, while Sesame returned to her divine sense at the same time. The moment her true form was revealed, everyone was dumbfounded. They looked at the dragon body that was so huge that it could connect the entire sky and earth with a look of disbelief. If there were still people who doubted her identity earlier, at this moment, all of them had already been dispelled. Dragon. Dragon. The two immortal monarchs who were being restrained were even more dumbfounded. They never expected that the woman whom they were suspecting just a moment ago, not only was she not a devil, she was the legendary archenemy, the god race. The entire world had already turned purple. That world-destroying talisman had already been completely activated. Violent winds blew. Sand and stones flew everywhere. The center of the talisman emitted out a golden light. Some sort of powerful energy was currently surging out from within, and it looked like it was about to explode in all directions. Zhu Yao had already flown onto the talisman with her powerful dragon form. She swallowed it in one gulp. Naturally, she was unable to digest it. However, she was a dragon after all. Even if she did not receive any inheritance from the god race, her body was still as strong as before. However, this was, after all, an energy that could destroy the world. No matter how strong it was impossible for her to completely block it. Hence, she could only watch as the talisman exploded in her body. She watched as her own flesh and blood splattered, and the energy that leaked out spread in all directions. She watched as a large amount of seawater in the entire ocean instantly disappeared and spread outwards in a circular shape. Only when the entire ocean's seawater was swept away by the energy did it stop. Then she saw that despicable conversation window again. Congratulations, you have entered the palace for the 4th time. Please choose resurrect, resurrect, or resurrect. Flip's table. 3 people appeared and chose the same option. Was there any meaning to it? Was there any meaning to it? Zhu Yao took a deep breath. Though the entire ocean had been roasted dry, at the very least, she had stopped the world extermination talisman. She casually tapped on revive. In an instant, her vision darkened. She once again returned to that pitch-black world with a single loading bar. Her heart instantly clenched for a moment, as though a layer of something that had been covering her the entire time had been peeled off. She felt as though she could barely breathe. Seeing that the loading bar was about to reach the end, Zhu Yao took a deep breath. Realm Spirit, I know you're here. Come out for a moment, let's talk about life. The loading bar paused and stopped at the 99% mark. As though the pause button had been pressed, the surroundings were unusually quiet. Stop hiding, I know it's you. Come out right now. A moment later, the loading bar flashed, and then it instantly disappeared. Then, in the vast black world, a ding suddenly sounded, and an interface popped out. A QQ chat interface. Realm Spirit, dear, long time no see, dear. Did you miss me, dear? Zhu Yao suddenly had the urge to scold someone. Realm Spirit. What's the matter, dear? I'll tell you everything I know, dear. Your sister. Just who are you? Realm Spirit. I'm your good friend, Realm Spirit. I've always been with you, dear. I've always been with you, dear. I've always been with the god of death, right? Every time he died, he would only see these strange chat windows. If not for her roar this time, he might have decided to never come out again. Why did you bring me here? Why do you want me to fix the damn bug? Realm Spirit was silent for a moment. Only then did the QQ interface floating in the sky display a message. Realm Spirit, you promised me before, you'll help me fix the bug. Friends should help each other, you know? Help your sister. Is this how you ask others to help you? How many times has this old lady died already? Just what's your goal? Realm Spirit, I just want you to help me out. As you can see, there are many problems in this world. Big bro, I'm just a game planner. It's fine if you want me to come up with some game plans, but if you want me to save the world, and it's even a cultivation world, I really can't afford it. Realm Spirit. But, you're doing really well. Well, my ass. I've already gambled with a few lives. If this continues, I'll collapse sooner or later. Realm Spirit. Then, do you want to return to your original world? Chapter 135. Of course, she wanted to go back to her original world. There was her family, her friends, and everything she was familiar with. She couldn't wait to return there, but when the time came, she suddenly hesitated. Can you really send me back? Realm Spirit, I can't. Then why the hell did you ask? She hesitated for a moment. Realm Spirit, not now, but maybe in the future. What do you mean? Do you want to adjust the taste? Just as Zhu Yao was about to ask, she suddenly saw the conversation window shake for a moment. Then, on the right side of the window, there was an additional option to receive a file. The file's name was Return Gift Pack. There were 4 more choices: accept, preview, save as, and cancel. Did it have to be so high-end? How much did Penguin pay you? Realm Spirit. I'm not lying to you. I've already made all the preparations for your return. It's just that I'm temporarily unable to send you back. Zhu Yao hesitated for a moment, before tapping on the additional word preview. In an instant, another light screen appeared beside her. On that light screen, there was an icicle as tall as a person, and within that icicle was a woman. Isn't this me? The frozen woman looked exactly the same as her original appearance. Realm Spirit. Your body was already destroyed, so I prepared a new one for you. Of course, as the grand prize, I got rid of some of the minor problems of this body, such as breast hyperplasia, irregular menstruation, ulcers, constipation. Shut up. How many problems did her original body have? Realm Spirit. Anyway, when you go back, you will feel great. Zhu Yao took a deep breath and calmed herself down. Tell me honestly, what are you trying to do? Who are you? Why do I have to fix these bugs? He suddenly fell silent. For a long time, no new words appeared on the dialogue box. Just when she thought he would remain silent forever, the next sentence finally popped up. Realm Spirit. I can't say it now, but you'll naturally understand everything in the future. Wasn't that obvious? Then will I see you in the future? I mean the real you? Even though he had known him for a few years in the modern world, he had never met him. His master said that he could make a person be reborn infinitely. It could be a powerhouse from the upper realm. But until now, she knew nothing about him. Realm Spirit, sure. How many bugs do I have to fix? Realm Spirit did not answer directly. Realm Spirit. These bugs are limited. The more bugs you fix, the more of my abilities I can recover. The closer you are to home. Judging from his tone, it probably wasn't just 1 or 2. However, it was good that he knew. She was really afraid that this kind of thing would never end. Then can you tell me? What will I become in the next version? First a baby, then a man. In the end, he wasn't even a human anymore. Seeing that we're considered good friends, can you give me a better avatar? Realm Spirit. Of course, of course. I guarantee that the next sock puppet will be unprecedented. She was definitely loved by everyone who saw her. Flowers bloomed and cars bloomed. Be it men or women, old or young. No matter how to get rid of your charm, you as a treasure. Neither abandoning nor leaving. Really, why does it sound so Mary Sue? Realm spirit. You have to trust me, friend. Trust my ass. It was because she mistakenly trusted him that she ended up in this godforsaken place. She died and died and died again, and continued to die. All right, hurry and send me to the next filming location. This guy's mouth was so tight. Most probably, she wouldn't get any results even if she continued asking. Zhu Yao waved her hand and canceled the acceptance of that homecoming gift. Realm spirit. Have a safe journey. He sent a bye-bye emoji. In the next moment, the loading bar once again appeared. Just as she was about to reach the halfway point, Zhu Yao finally could not help but ask. Realm spirit Wang Xiuji. Is he alright? The conversation window was silent for a moment. When the loading bar was about to finish, a picture was finally sent. It was a screenshot. It was an unfamiliar man. She had never seen him before, but she knew that it was Wang Xiuji. He was currently wearing a wedding robe, smiling at another woman with a veil over her head. It seemed like they were in the middle of a wedding ceremony. Zhu Yao lightly heaved a sigh of relief. Ever since she entered this space, she had recalled everything. Her heart, which had been heavy the entire time, finally relaxed a little. That's good. I really hope that I can meet him again. With a ding sound, the loading bar finally finished. Zhu Yao instantly felt as though she was surrounded by a ray of white light. And in the dark space where Zhu Yao's figure was no longer present, a final line of words popped out from the conversation window. Realm spirit. I will. The moment Zhu Yao woke up, she saw a blue sky. It was so blue that there wasn't a single impurity, and not even a single white cloud could be seen. She couldn't help but lament that this really was a good weather. She had to stretch her body, my ass. Why couldn't she move? No matter how her brain ordered her to get up, she was still lying on the ground, unable to move a single inch. She wanted to call for help, but realized that she couldn't even make a sound. Zhu Yao's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't have turned into a cripple, right? But even if she was a cripple, why couldn't she even move her head, hey? She couldn't feel a single thing in her body. What happened to the promised avatar that was loved by everyone? The one that would definitely be praised in history? Zhu Yao suddenly had the urge to drag Realm Spirit out and give him a good beating. Unfortunately, she couldn't do anything right now. She could only stare at the unchanging blue sky. And then it rained. And it was even raining heavily. However, she, who was completely unconscious, could not even feel the wetness. The rain lasted for exactly an hour, and after it ended, there was even a freaking flood. Zhu Yao felt that the entire world was shaking, and only then did she realize that she was currently being washed away by the water current. A lot of water filled her field of vision, and she knew that she was currently sinking as she moved. However, the strange thing was she did not feel the slightest bit of suffocation from drowning. The water level did not rise for long, however. 10 or so minutes later, the shaking that she was being washed away finally stopped. The rain stopped, and she once again saw the cloudless blue sky. Zhu Yao felt that she had to think about life. Unfortunately, before she could finish her thoughts, a doubtful female voice suddenly sounded. What's that? The sound of rapidly approaching footsteps could be heard. In the next moment, a giant appeared in her field of vision. In her view, a giant was already as tall as the sky, and it was even a female giant. Zhu Yao was so frightened that her heart was about to jump out. No matter who it was, if they were to suddenly see a person whose eyes were even bigger than her head appear in front of them, they would definitely be frightened. Furthermore, this giant had clearly discovered her. Zhu Yao's first reaction was to hurriedly run. Mama's egg, run my ass. She was basically unable to move at all. Even in a dangerous situation like this, she realized that she still could not feel her body at all. She could only watch as the giant reached out a gigantic palm and grabbed her up. She looked at her from head to toe. So dirty. That face that was as big as a basketball court frowned in disgust. Then, she raised her other hand and fiercely wiped her hair and face. Hey. She was treating her as a washboard. Zhu Yao instantly felt like crying, but no tears came out. However, no matter how she retorted in her heart, only when the female giant felt satisfied did she finally stop. Zhu Yao was a little glad that she could no longer feel anything. Otherwise, with this method of wiping, a layer of her skin would definitely fall off. After wiping it clean, it's pretty unique. That female giant muttered to herself, and then, she grabbed onto her basketball court face, as though she wanted to take a closer look. Her entire body could be seen in those eyes that were as big as a well. That squarish Snow White, the hell. The moment she saw her own reflection in the female giant's eyes, Zhu Yao finally knew why she could not move. For some reason, she suddenly recalled the first sentence she said when her master descended to the lower realm the last time she saw him. Great hero, do you lack a leg accessory? Back then, she only said that because she wanted to hug his thigh, but she never expected. The hell, she really turned into a leg accessory. Furthermore, it was a square, snow-white jade pendant without the slightest flaw. Flip's table. Realm spirit, come out. I promise I won't beat you to death. Zhu Yao finally understood what was called the greatest evil intention. Why do I feel that this jade is a little darker than before? The woman flipped the jade that she accidentally picked up a few times, and with a doubtful look, she said, "It's clearly a divine jade. Why is the divine energy so weak?" That's right, I'm a defective product. Hurry and smash me, let me continue with version 6.0. Zhu Yao silently chanted. Forget it. The woman did not mind, and casually stuffed the jade to her waist. It's fate that I picked it up, it might be useful? Don't hesitate to smash me. Unfortunately, the woman could not hear the pleas in Zhu Yao's heart. She patted her waist in relief, and after confirming that she had placed it properly, she turned around and planned to leave this place. Only then did Zhu Yao clearly see that the place she was lying on earlier was merely a small ditch that was not even the width of 2 hands. After picking up a divine jade, the woman seemed to be very happy, and even her footsteps had become a lot more relaxed. Just as she took 2 steps, her face suddenly paled, as though she had discovered something, and she suddenly raised her head to look at the sky. In the next instant, a white figure instantly appeared 3 steps away from her. That was a man, handsome and outstanding, and his face was a little cold. Although he had restrained it, his entire body still emitted the aura of a superior. Only his pair of exceptionally bright eyes were staring straight at the woman in front of him. Master. Zhu Yao was so excited that she wanted to pounce over, but unfortunately, she could not move a single inch. The woman did not move, and looked at the person who suddenly stopped her with caution. Her eyes inadvertently looked at the unique pattern on his sleeves, and her eyes suddenly widened. That symbol was Yao. Yan called out. His voice still did not have any warmth, but Zhu Yao could faintly hear the rise and fall of his tone. You're finally here. Master. Zhu Yao suddenly had the urge to cry. However, she suddenly heard a female voice reply. That's right. In the next moment, the woman who picked her up took a step forward and stood next to Yu Yan, and the master she had been thinking about was currently raising his hand and placed it on the woman's head. Chapter 136. Hello everyone, she's Zhu Yao. Currently, she's a piece of divine jade. To put it simply, she was a rock. On the first day of making immortal jade, she was picked up by an unknown woman, and then she dropped a master. Towards such a tragic and heart-wrenching experience, she only wanted to say one word, little bitch. Looking at this woman, who was standing on her master's divine sword with a gentle and bashful look, as she followed him back, Zhu Yao felt like rushing out at any moment to scratch her face. She didn't know what this woman's motive was. Not only did she pretend to be him, but she even made up an excuse about amnesia. More importantly, Master really believed it. Although he had always known that his master had a screw loose in his head, did he really have to lose his IQ at such a critical moment? Master, what is this place? The woman pointed to a place not too far away from them. It was a place shrouded in thunderclouds. Bolts of purple lightning flashed continuously. Even from afar, One could feel the towering aura, causing others to not dare to approach. Lightning Divine Hall. Yu Yan turned to look at this disciple of his who had evidently become a lot more reserved. His brows furrowed. Could it be that after losing her memories, her personality would change as well? Since you've already arrived at the Divine Realm, you'll naturally stay with me in the Lightning Divine Hall from now on. Is Master a disciple of Lightning Divine Hall? Amen. Yu Yan nodded. A hint of ecstasy instantly flashed past the woman's eyes, however, she immediately concealed it. With an ignorant look, she asked, I wonder what kind of place this Lightning Divine Hall is. Recalling that his disciple had just ascended to the higher realm not too long ago, and was most likely unclear of the situation, Yu Yan explained. The Lightning Divine Hall is the place that controls the rules and punishments of the Divine Realm. Rules and punishments. Wasn't that equivalent to a court of law? Zhu Yao glanced at her master. She couldn't tell that her master was even a judge in the higher realm? I see. The woman's eyes lit up even more. A moment later, he said, I wonder who else is in this Lightning Divine Hall. Would it be bad for Master to bring me in like this? Yu Yan, who was initially about to raise his hand to disperse the lightning clouds, paused for a moment. Turning his head, he strangely glanced at the person behind him who was a little nervous. His stupid disciple actually began to consider these questions in advance as well. Could it be that amnesia would actually increase one's IQ? You don't have to worry about that. For some reason, he was not used to this shrewd disciple of his. He waved his hand. In an instant, the lightning and thunder clouds in front of them split apart. The two of them flew in on their swords, and within a moment, the sky that was pitch black just a moment ago had turned completely dark. In an instant, it turned into a blue sky, revealing a floating celestial mountain. The most prominent thing on the celestial mountain was a tower that reached the sky. The tower was so tall that its top could not be seen. It was as if it had already formed a line with the sky. On the celestial mountain, there was a sea of flowers everywhere. As the wind blew, the sky was filled with a rain of flowers. Riding on the sword, it was as if he was stepping on a sea of flowers. This was the Lightning Divine Hall. It was a little too beautiful. Zhu Yao looked at this scene that was as beautiful as a game, and did not regain her senses for a long while. They landed in a peach forest at the foot of the mountain. We're here. Yu Yan pointed to a straw cottage in the depths of the peach forest. You'll be staying there from now on. The woman was taken aback. He glanced at the small, run-down house, then looked up at the towering palace on the mountain. His expression instantly changed. After a while he said, Master, aren't we going to the top of the mountain? Yu Yan frowned, as though he had recalled something unpleasant. However, he still said indifferently, There's no need. You should rest early today. After saying that, he turned around and walked towards another straw cottage. The woman's expression paled. Feeling anxious in her heart, she pulled onto his sleeves. Master? The hell? Zhu Yao instantly flipped out. Little bitch, let go of your claws. This man is mine. Yu Yan curiously turned his head. The woman's face revealed an instant of panic. This disciple is a little nervous after arriving at an unfamiliar place. Yu Yan was even more astonished now. His stupid disciple actually had times where she was nervous and afraid? He habitually raised his hand and stroked her head. Looking at the rarely seen obedient lowered head, he strangely felt a little strange in his heart. Be obedient. Your master is here. Amen. The woman nodded. She tightened her grip on the corner of his clothes. Yet, a hint of redness could be seen on her face. Looking at this scene that seemed to be filled with affection, Zhu Yao was so angry that she felt an internal injury. Master, your disciple is here. Why are you staring at her face? Why don't you look down? Look at her lower body. Unfortunately, no matter how much she scratched her heart, the nation's good master, Yu Yan, still dutifully sent the woman back to the little straw cottage, before turning around and leaving. Before he left, he even kindly closed the door. Only when she could no longer hear Yu Yan's footsteps, did the obedient and weak expression on the woman's face instantly retract. Instead, she revealed an expression that was mixed with excitement, joy, and a little nervousness. Lightning Divine Hall. I never expected that I would actually be able to come to the Lightning Divine Hall. The woman's face was filled with excitement. She took a few deep breaths, as though she was trying her best to suppress the joy in her heart. She sat on a chair in the house, and a moment later, her expression slowly calmed down. The corner of her lips slowly rose, and her smile was filled with schemes. Yu Yao is it? Yu Yan felt that his disciple who reincarnated this time was a little strange, but he couldn't put his finger on what was strange about it. His disciple had lost her memories. This was not the first time she had lost her memories. He remembered that the last time his disciple returned, she had forgotten a portion of her memories as well, and those were related to Wang Xuji. But this time, she had even forgotten about him. This wasn't a big deal in the first place. If she had forgotten, so be it. In the future, he would just have to protect her a little more. However, faintly he felt that something was amiss, and there was an indescribable sense of incongruity. Clearly, he could sense the strand of divine sense he had planted in her body back then. However, when he faced her, he had a feeling that the person in front of him was not his disciple. Master. A light call came from outside the door. With a twist of Yu Yan's palm, the restrictions in the house were released, and the door automatically opened as well. The disciple he had just picked up today was currently standing outside the door. Seeing him nod, she slowly walked in, cupped her fists and bowed to him. Yu Yao greets Master. Amen. Yu Yan responded, however he unconsciously frowned. That sense of incongruity came again. The woman raised her head, and with an obedient and respectful look. I wonder why Master is calling for this disciple. Yu Yan pondered for a moment. Taking 2 steps forward, he took out a jade tablet and passed it over. This is my Lightning Divine Hall's Imperial Lightning Art. Since you've already arrived at the higher realm, it's about time for you to start learning the mystic arts of the higher realm. Imperial Lightning Art. She seemed to be startled for a moment. Her eyes widened a little, and her hands instantly tightened. However, her expression did not change much. A moment later, she solemnly received it. This disciple understands. Yu Yan, however, was a little dumbfounded. In the past, she would always ask him about everything in detail. Although they were all stupid questions of common sense, she would only nod her head if she was clear about them. Rarely would she agree so easily. This time, she did not ask or say anything, and she even seemed to be a little happy. Since when did she become so positive? Yu Yan could not help but feel a little strange in his heart. Train well. If there's anything you don't understand, you can come and ask your master. Her expression instantly turned a little more serious. Thank you, Master. This disciple will definitely do her best. Amen. Yu Yan nodded. Habitually, he raised his hand to stroke her head, only to be greeted by her obedient and grateful expression. Unknowingly, his hand hovered above her head, unable to press down. In the end, he retracted it. Even the words he wanted to say to comfort her earlier could not be said at all. You may leave. Yes, this disciple shall take her leave. She once again bowed, turned around, and left the room. She had even closed the door for him. Yu Yan's brows, however, furrowed even deeper. The woman walked very quickly, and carried a little urgency. When she reached the end, she seemed to be running back to her own room, and closed the door. After pondering for a moment, she once again placed a layer of restrictions in the room, before sitting cross-legged on the bed. Spreading out her already damp palm, she held onto the jade tablet, and could not help but tremble a little. The ecstasy on her face could no longer be concealed, as she grinned. Imperial Lightning Art, it's actually the Imperial Lightning Art. That excited look, even Zhu Yao could sense it. Could it be that the reason why she impersonated her was to enter the Lightning Divine Hall to learn the mystic arts here? The woman anxiously pressed the jade tablet she had just obtained onto her forehead, and began to inspect it. Why is there only a single level of the mystic art? Her expression changed, revealing a hint of dissatisfaction. A moment later, she regained her composure, and began to meditate and cultivate. And Zhu Yao, who was stuffed onto her waist, began to ponder her current situation as well. It seemed like this woman who popped out of nowhere was planning to impersonate her to the end. and her master mistook her for someone else. It was very likely because she was on her body. After all, even she herself did not expect that she would turn into a jade tablet. If she wanted to expose her scheme, she simply had to leave her side. Fortunately, she did not realize this, and back then, she did not place her into her storage space, and simply casually placed her on her waist. This gave her a chance to escape. However, the problem now was she could not move nor could she speak. What should she do? The woman had already completely entered a meditative state, and faintly, dense divine energy was approaching her from the surroundings. Without a doubt, she was reincarnated into the divine realm this time. Although she did not know why cultivation was required in the divine realm as well, compared to the cultivation world, clearly, the divine energy this woman was absorbing was different from the spiritual energy in the lower realm. This one was much denser, and the energy was much purer as well. Zhu Yao suddenly thought of something. Could she cultivate as well? In this world, anything that had awakened their spiritual intelligence could cultivate into a spirit. Although their cultivation speed was not as fast as human practitioners, and their bodies were not as strong as demonic beasts, it was not impossible for them to walk and talk. With a single glance, she could tell that this person who impersonated her had ill intentions. No matter what, she had to expose her. She had to immediately begin cultivating. Zhu Yao was instantly filled with fighting spirit, but in the next moment, it was completely emptied. Forget about cultivating, she could not sense any spiritual energy at all. In the beginning, she followed the most basic method of guiding spiritual energy into her body, only to realize that there was not a single trace of spiritual energy in the air, let alone differentiating the 5 types of spiritual energy. How was she supposed to continue? Wait a minute. She looked at the woman next to her. Could it be that divine energy could only be absorbed when cultivating in the higher realm? Zhu Yao pondered for a moment, and began to sense the divine energy with all her might. As expected, the surroundings were filled with dense energy. She tried her best to absorb it, but the surrounding divine energy did not have the slightest reaction, let alone entering her body. The hell, she was looking down on jade tablets. Could it be that she was destined to quietly be a piece of divine jade? Until the day someone came to shatter her, would she be able to make a comeback? She did not give up, and tried again and again. Even when the moon had risen into the sky, she was still unable to sense the slightest bit of divine energy. Zhu Yao felt a sense of depression that she had never felt before, and felt that her future was bleak. Suddenly, a warm feeling instantly spread throughout her entire body, as though it had seeped into the core of her jade tablet. Chapter 137. Zhu Yao carefully sensed it for a moment, only to realize that the warm current earlier disappeared in an instant. However, she clearly felt that her entire body had lit up, but no matter how she continued to guide the qi into her body, that feeling disappeared. Just as Zhu Yao was feeling doubtful, the warm flow that had disappeared once again appeared, and it was seeping in bit by bit from the upper half of her jade-like body. And even if she did not circulate her mystic arts, the warm flow would still automatically flow into the jade. When Zhu Yao took a closer look, she realized that the upper half of her body was currently being enveloped by a silver light, and that silver light was seeping in from outside the window. It was moonlight. She could absorb moonlight to cultivate. In other words, she didn't have to be a pendant anymore. That was great. Zhu Yao instantly heaved a sigh of relief. Although she still did not understand the specific cultivation method, this moonlight was evidently beneficial to her. Thus, she silently guided more warm currents into the jade, but this speed was clearly too slow. Even when the sun rose again, the warm current in his body was still so small that it was almost undetectable. The woman seemed to be planning to go into seclusion, and she still hadn't woken up from her meditation. The immortal qi on his body also became thicker and thicker. Of course, Zhu Yao hoped that she would continue to meditate. As long as she did not wake up, when night fell, she would be able to absorb a little more moonlight to cultivate. Even if she could not cultivate out of physical form, it would be fine as long as she could speak. Unfortunately, the time at night was limited. Although she had been cultivating very hard, She still couldn't open her mouth after 3 whole months. At most, she had turned from a piece of white jade to a little whiter. Zhu Yao was a little anxious. This woman who was impersonating her would most probably come out of closed-door training in a month's time. When that time comes, she basically wouldn't have a chance like this to be able to cultivate right under her eyes. And one day, she would find out that she was the reason why her master had mistaken her for someone else. The speed at which she absorbed the moonlight was too slow. She had to think of a better way. He had to speed up the absorption of moonlight. However, she did not know the specific method of cultivation. The cultivation method that she used to inhale air into her body had no effect at all. What could make the moonlight automatically enter her body? Zhu Yao suddenly recalled the method she used when she was forming her Azoth core. Back then, the speed at which she absorbed spiritual energy had increased by a lot. Of course, that was because of the principle of centrifugal force and centripetal force. In that case, could she use the same method to circulate the moonlight energy that she had absorbed at a high speed to drive more energy into her body? Zhu Yao tried to circulate the warm flow she had guided in for the past 2 months. Although it was only a trace of that power, however, it was extremely obedient. With just a thought, the warm current automatically began to circulate in the jade. The core of the jade glowed faintly. As it spun faster, more and more warm currents flowed into the jade. Zhu Yao suppressed her excitement and carefully removed the newly entered energy. It joined the revolving whirlpool of energy, and the warm current grew larger and larger. As it became more and more solid, the ball of light at the heart of the jade also slowly expanded. As she absorbed more and more moonlight, Zhu Yao did not continue to turn into an even whiter jade. In any case, she was beginning to turn faintly transparent. She could even feel the surroundings being blocked by the woman's clothes. This feeling was the same as when she first cultivated her divine sense. Half a month later, she had completely turned into a sparkling and translucent stone. The more energy accumulated in the jade, the more it became. Her cultivation speed was getting faster and faster. She could even absorb moonlight. He could also faintly absorb some of the immortal qi. This was a good sign. Usually, she could only cultivate under the moonlight, so she could only sleep during the day. Now that she could absorb immortal qi, she could continue cultivating during the day as well. However, she was still unable to move, nor could she speak. Every time she wanted to make a sound, it was as though something was stuck in her throat. And after absorbing the immortal qi, her jade body was no longer transparent. Rather, it was slowly dyed green, looking even more like a piece of jade. From jade to crystal, and then to jadeite. Zhu Yao felt that there would be a day when she would evolve into a diamond. A month later, the woman finally woke up from her meditative state. Just like how she had turned from a white jade into a jadeite, the immortal qi on the woman's body had thickened by quite a bit as well. In the past, she could not tell because she had yet to cultivate, but right now, she could faintly feel the pressure coming from her body. Without a doubt, the woman's cultivation had risen, though she was still unable to tell how much. The woman took a deep breath. Tidying up her clothes that she had not touched for more than 4 months, she chanted a cleansing incantation, and her expression was a little complacent. Raising her hand, she clenched it, and lightning sparks immediately flashed in her palm. As though she was very satisfied with her own cultivation, the woman revealed a complacent smile. Picking up the cultivation jade tablet Yu Yan gave her, she left the door. It was time for her to obtain the second stage of the immortal art. The woman walked very anxiously, heading straight for the straw cottage in front of her. Her footsteps were as though she was flying. Zhu Yao knew that her chance had arrived. Aiming at a patch of grass, she circulated all of the spiritual energy in her body and attacked downwards with all her might. She simply felt her entire body relaxing, and the entire piece of jade was pushed upwards by the impact. It shook out from the woman's belt, and then, it fell into a patch of grass at the side. Zhu Yao had exhausted all of her energy, and had once again returned to the form of a white jade. However, to the woman, she basically did not feel anything. Even if she noticed it, she would simply think that the piece of jade had fallen down. Adding that her mind was completely focused on finding the person. She basically did not realize that the jade on her waist had already fallen out. The place Zhu Yao chose was a patch of grass, and it was near the edge of a cliff. Hence, she basically did not make any sound. The woman walked straight away, and completely did not notice Zhu Yao's little movements. Only when the woman had already walked far away, did Zhu Yao heave a deep sigh of relief. Success. However, she was about to collapse. In an instant, she had exhausted all of the energy she had accumulated for the past 4 months. This feeling was even more tiring than exhausting all of her spiritual energy in the past. Zhu Yao's initially green body had once again turned white. It seemed like she had to continue cultivating. As long as she was not on that woman's body, her master should be able to clearly see the truth, right? If he were to still admit his mistake after this, she would definitely bite him to death. Right now, she did not have the slightest bit of energy, so it seemed like she could only wait for the moon to appear. After cultivating for a period of time, when she could move again, she would then look for her master, or wait for a certain person to realize it himself. Amen. Let's hope that this patch of grass is not too deep, preventing her from being able to see the moonlight. She resentfully looked towards the sky, only to suddenly realize that something was currently falling from the sky. It was completely red. Were they flower petals? After all, this place was filled with peach blossoms. That red color, however, grew larger. Only then did Zhu Yao realize that it was a person, simply dressed in a red robe. He flew over from the sky, and did not fly on a sword or a tool. As though he was taking a stroll, he walked down from the sky step by step. With every step he took, a large number of flower petals would automatically gather beneath his feet. Just like that, he stepped on the flower petals as he descended. That's right, it was him. That was a man. Such a flashy entrance, he was actually a man. The moment she clearly saw his appearance, Zhu Yao was truly stunned, captivating even fish and alighting swallows, eclipsing the moon and shaming the flowers. His facial features were picturesque. Even these words were insufficient to describe his absolute beauty. Every single part of him seemed to be the greatest masterpiece of the heavens. He was so beautiful that it was a little suffocating. She had to say, even Pebble was dumbfounded. Though he was dressed in a red robe, and his robe was slightly open, not only did he not have the slightest hint of femininity. In any case, he gave off a romantic and unrestrained feeling. Zhu Yao felt that this person looked a little familiar, and just as she was thinking where she had seen him before, that inhumanly beautiful man, however, was walking straight towards her direction. In an instant, the surrounding flower petals fluttered, as though they had paved a path of fresh flowers. In an instant, it brought about quite a large whirlwind, while that man took the opportunity to step on her. And then, he kicked Zhu Yao. Zhu Yao simply felt a surge of divine energy rushing into her body, and then, with a whoosh, she fell from the top of the cliff. Your sister. The man was startled. He looked at his surroundings for a moment. Did he hear a sound earlier? It must be a misconception. Tao Manfeng was an earth deity, who had just ascended not too long ago. She had ascended from a small spiritual world to the higher realm. In the past, when she was in the lower realm, she could be considered as a powerhouse. With her mutated wind spirit veins aptitude, she had always been the target pursued by many practitioners. However, she never expected that after ascending to the higher realm, she who had always been high and mighty, would become so mediocre. The higher realm gathered practitioners who had ascended from various small worlds. In the beginning, which one of them wasn't a dragon or phoenix among men? And the competition between the strong would only become even more intense. Adding that a small spiritual world was just a small world, there might not even be a single person who could ascend to the higher realm even after several 100,000 years. Hence, she basically did not have any backing in the divine realm. Without anyone to guide her, and without any backing, she had fallen from a high and mighty powerhouse to a speck of dust. Though she already possessed an eternal divine body, she was still restricted in every aspect, and had to tuck her tail between her legs to survive in the higher realm. She thought that she would have to continue living like a lowly person. Yet the heavens dropped a huge pie right into her lap. She met a disciple of the Lightning Divine Hall, and this person actually mistook her as his own disciple. Tao Manfeng was both happy and afraid. The Lightning Divine Hall was a place that could only be seen in the entire divine realm, but could not be reached. Legends said that it controlled all of the lightning energy in the world, and had the ability to control all of the heavenly lightning in the world. It was mysterious and unfathomable, and just how many disciples were there in there? No one even knew who was the person in charge of the Lightning Divine Hall. Only when they encountered a huge matter that threatened the three realms would they occasionally appear to solve it. Even the four great emperors were wary of them. Without a doubt, a place like this was a place that no one in the divine realm dared to offend. Tao Manfeng was excited. She knew that this was her chance, hence, without any hesitation, she impersonated that disciple called Yu Yao, and lied that she encountered an accident when she ascended, causing her to lose her memories, and that Yu Yen had indeed brought her to the Lightning Divine Hall. Unexpectedly, he did not enter the main hall, and instead, stayed at the foot of the mountain. She guessed that this person was most probably not an elite disciple of the Lightning Divine Hall. However, it didn't matter. As long as she was related to the Lightning Divine Hall, in the future, she could be considered to have the strongest backing in the divine realm. More importantly, this person actually knew the Imperial Lightning Art, the legendary mystic art that could control heavenly lightning. Tao Manfeng was even more excited than before. This was a legendary mystic art that only disciples of the Lightning Divine Hall knew. If she were to learn it, who in this world could still bully her? Hence, she unhesitatingly went into closed-door training, because she was afraid that that person would retract the mystic art on a whim. After seriously spending an entire 4 months, she finally broke through the first layer. Then, without stopping, she went to that cheap master of hers to ask for the next layer's mystic art. Unfortunately, she could not find that person's figure in the room. After pondering for a moment, she turned around and walked into the peach forest. Finally, she saw that white figure in the depths of the peach forest. Her heart was filled with joy, and her mind was currently filled with the mystic art for the next layer. She then sprinted towards him. "Moss!" Before she could even shout out, she was suddenly sent flying by a powerful force in an instant. For a moment her meridians shook, and she puked out a mouthful of fresh blood. Even the cultivation that she thought she had raised during these 4 months was instantly scattered by half. Chapter 138. Tao Manfeng's face instantly paled, and for a moment, she did not dare to believe her own ears. She was already feeling guilty in the first place, and after hearing his question, she had almost exposed herself. "Master, it's this disciple." Yu Yen frowned evidently. He was very dissatisfied with her answer. The cold aura emitted from his entire body, yet he still asked in a probing manner, "Yu Wang?" Tao Manfeng blanked. Could it be that this person had another disciple? Hence, she endured her heavy injuries and replied, "Master, this disciple is Yu Yao." Wrong answer. The cold aura from Yu Yan's body was no longer suppressed, and began to leak out. Tao Manfeng still wanted to explain a little more, however. She simply felt a pressure that was even stronger than before assaulting her from all directions. Before she could even block it in time, she felt a pain in her dantian, and her cultivation was greatly scattered. Forget about the cultivation she had cultivated for the past 4 months. Even half of her original cultivation had been destroyed. Tao Manfeng puked out a mouthful of old blood just like that. She wanted to explain with all her might. How could she lose such a good opportunity just like that? However, Yu Yen completely did not give her the chance to catch her breath. Casting a hand seal with a single hand, a bolt of 9 heavenly lightning had already formed behind him. Tao Manfeng instantly lost all thoughts of explaining. If she was struck by a 9 heavenly lightning, would she still be alive? She immediately cast a defensive divine art, and at the same time, she swiftly summoned her sword, preparing to escape. Unfortunately, no matter how fast she was not faster than that bolt of heavenly lightning. The purple-colored lightning bolt struck straight towards her, and with a loud boom, it turned into nothingness along with that escaping figure. An illusion? She escaped? Yu Yen frowned, and then he no longer bothered about this person who dared to barge into the Lightning Divine Hall, and even impersonated his own disciple. Such a foolish earth deity was really rare. She would definitely lead his disciple astray. She definitely could not be allowed into the mountain. As for Tao Manfeng, who was mysteriously chased out of the lightning divine hall, she was currently dizzy from the heavenly lightning formation surrounding the lightning divine hall, and was suffering unspeakably. She could not understand why Yu Yan, who was still fine 4 months ago, would suddenly turn against her. Could she have been discovered? However, she clearly did not do anything at all. Earlier, she was still fine, so why did he suddenly look as though he had woken up? Did he try to kill her? While she was puzzled, Yu Yan, who was visiting his disciple, was a little dumbfounded as he stared at the empty straw cottage. He released his divine sense and searched the entire mountain, but he couldn't find any trace of his disciple. His originally cold face was now filled with anger. It was even colder now. He seemed to have lost his disciple again. In Yu Yan's eyes, there were actually not many people whose faces he could remember. One of them was his master. One was the sect master of Ancient Hill Sect, ZMO, and the other was his own disciple. As long as he thought of the first 2 names, the corresponding faces would naturally appear in his mind. Only his troublesome disciple was different. It wasn't that he couldn't remember. Instead, whenever he thought of them, different faces would appear in his mind. As for the others, even when he heard the name, his mind was still a mess. The only difference was whether it was bigger or smaller. That's right, he was face-blind. For unimportant people, he never wasted time trying to memorize someone's face. As for his stupid disciple, she was the person he spent the most time remembering in his life, but she was also the most troublesome one. They kept changing their appearances. Fortunately, she had her own divine sense, with the help of divine sense. With the assistance of his divine sense, as long as she stood in front of him, he would immediately remember her appearance. However, the situation this time was a little different. Yu Yan stood blankly in his disciple's little straw cottage. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't remember how the disciple he picked up looked like 4 months ago. Hence, Tao Manfeng's tragedy was not because her plot was exposed, but because Yu Yan basically did not recognize that the person he sent flying was the person he picked up 4 months ago. Light the candle. Currently, his real disciple Zhu Yao, due to an unexpected misfortune, was kicked out of the Lightning Divine Hall and fell into a dense forest. However, because of that, she activated the ability to speak. Towards this scene, Zhu Yao, who had profited from a disaster, only wanted to say one word. The hell? Zhu Yao's face landed on the ground, and half of the entire rock had sunk into the soil, revealing only a small portion of green jade. There's a new mushroom? A curious voice suddenly sounded next to her. Zhu Yao habitually retorted, I'm not a mushroom. Such a huge mushroom. Zhu Yao was shocked speechless by the sudden appearance of a mushroom that was as tall as a tree. Why is there such a huge mushroom in this world? This is illogical. You can speak. That mushroom's face was filled with surprise. Like a mushroom monster in a game, it hopped towards her. Where did you come from, mushroom spirit? Why did you grow in my house? House. Zhu Yao was startled for a moment. She glanced at the place she was staying at. Other than the soil being a little loose, she really couldn't tell how this place could be considered as a house. Could this soil be the place this mushroom lived in? I'm not a mushroom spirit. Zhu Yao felt that she had to explain. I'm a rock. Oh, you're a rock spirit. The mushroom revealed a look of understanding. That's true. Before waiting for Zhu Yao to explain, the mushroom had already made his own guess. Rocks like to stay underground as well. It's no wonder you would fancy my house. The soil there is loose, fragrant, and soft. Anyone would like it. Zhu Yao's expression darkened. Just how did he realize that she had taken a fancy to this pile of mud? It's not that I want to forcefully occupy your house, but because I was thrown here by someone and coincidentally fell here, I'm unable to move. What? You dare to look down on my house? The mushroom suddenly flipped out. A good white mushroom instantly turned bright red. Where did this logic come from? However, she was a rock that couldn't be moved. With a single glance, she could tell that this mushroom had cultivated for many years, and could not be offended. Great deity, you've misunderstood. I'm not looking down on it, I'm just feeling guilty for occupying great deity's residence. Only then did the mushroom satisfyingly revert back to white. He sized her up for a moment, and said a little complacently, "How did you know that I have already cultivated into a deity? Great deity's body is filled with divine energy, and you even have such a majestic figure." Zhu Yao bit the bullet and flattered. "With a single glance, I can tell that you have cultivated for many years. That's..." The mushroom was satisfied, and his entire body felt comfortable from her praises. "You sure are a rock spirit with good eyes. I will not fuss over the matter of you growing in my house." "Thank you, great deity. Even if he fuss over it, she wouldn't be able to come out anyway." The mushroom hopped over, and in the end, stabbed into the soil next to her, splashing her entire face with mud. "It's been many years since I've spoken to anyone. In this forest, if it's not those ferocious deity beasts, then it's just flowers and plants without any spiritual intelligence. Seeing that you, a rock spirit, can be considered smart. In the future, follow me then." Zhu Yao resisted the urge to smear its face with mud as well, took a deep breath, and said, "I wonder how many years great deity has cultivated for?" Both of them had become spirits, so it might know of some cultivation methods. Then, it would be able to cultivate into a human form as soon as possible. When she mentioned this, the mushroom's expression grew even more spirited. "I have already cultivated for 30,000 years. I can leave the ground and move freely. How's that? Amazing, right?" She had clearly cultivated for 4 months. And she was already able to speak. He needed 30,000 years to walk. "Where the hell did you get your confidence from? You think you're really amazing? I wonder what's great deity's cultivation art?" "Cultivation art?" The mushroom was startled. "What's that?" "Fine. She asked for nothing." She shouldn't have hoped that this mushroom, who could only hop around after cultivating for 30,000 years, would have any good cultivation art. "Don't worry, rock spirit. Although your cultivation level isn't as high as mine, I won't despise you." "I despise you? Things like cultivation. You just have to bask in the moonlight. Although it's impossible for you to catch up to me, it's still possible for you to surpass other mushrooms." She didn't want to surpass the mushroom in the slightest. Could it be that his cultivation was all obtained from basking in the moonlight, and he basically didn't cultivate in any sort of cultivation art? Just how in the world did he safely grow to this size? "Oh, thank you, great deity." "You don't have to call me great deity either. You're being so distant, just call me mushroom." "Aunt. Hello. I'm Gua. Gua? What a strange name. How is it as strange as you?" He really believed it, hey. "The sky has darkened. The dark clouds are too heavy today. It seems like the moon won't appear. It's very dangerous at night, you know. You should rest early," the mushroom kindly suggested, and glanced at her. "Why don't I cover you with some more mud?" After saying that, he leaped, splashing up the surrounding mud. Zhu Yao watched as a thick layer of mud came smashing towards her, covering her tightly. "Amen, it's safe now. Zhu Yao, safe my ass." She couldn't even see it anymore, right? Zhu Yao felt like crying. Just as she was about to express a few words of protest, that mushroom tilted its head, and even its mushroom umbrella was retracted halfway. Snoring sounds could be heard. It fell asleep a little too quickly, wasn't it? Zhu Yao was a little helpless. There was indeed no moon today, so she could only sleep. Taking a deep breath, just as she was about to sink into the land of dreams, she heard the murmurs from the mushroom. "Don't get eaten tomorrow, don't get eaten tomorrow, don't get eaten tomorrow." Zhu Yao instantly felt that her future was bleak. Although this mushroom was a little unreliable, it still treated Zhu Yao rather well. In the day, it would bring her around to gather dew, and at night, it would bury her back into the hole. Only on the night when the moon appeared, it would dig her out to bask in the moonlight. Probably because it really hadn't seen anyone it could talk to for a long time. When it caught this stone that could talk, it felt like it had found a treasure. It would never forget to bring it along with it, and it was so talkative that people could not help but want to beat it up. Although it could move, in the end, it was still a mushroom that had yet to cultivate a body. When it wanted to walk, it could only hop around. Yet, its figure was simply too big, and with a single hop, it would smash a hole on the ground. Not to mention, it didn't have hands. Hence, it thought of a way to place it on its head. However, its mushroom head was round. Hence, every time it hopped, it would fall off its head with a plop. It had no choice but to come back to pick it up, and continue to hop forward. She would then slide off with a plop. Repeating this over and over again, Zhu Yao felt that it wouldn't be long before her version 6.0 would be online. Just like that, the mushroom picked it up and hopped around. A few days had passed, and it had really found a sense of balance. Zhu Yao had never slid off its head again. Her cultivation still did not have much progress, and her absorption of moonlight was still too slow. After 10 whole days, she had yet to recover even a tenth of the energy she had in the past 4 months. Zhu Yao's path of cultivation was far and distant, and this time, when she accompanied the mushroom to gather dew, she even met a familiar person, the little bitch who was pretending to be her. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.